What if the entire story we tell ourselves about our past is built on a foundation of unanswered questions? Think about the ancient world for a moment. We picture it as a simpler time, a linear progression from primitive tools to modern civilization, a tidy timeline we can point to in textbooks, but scattered across the globe, standing defiantly against the erosion of time, are silent, stone-cold contradictions to that neat and orderly narrative. These are the unexplained wonders of the ancient world, enigmatic relics and impossible constructions that whisper a far more complex, far more mysterious story. They are the architectural and technological marvels that, by all our modern logic, simply should not exist. They challenge our most fundamental assumptions about the capabilities of our ancestors, forcing us to reconsider not just how they built, but what they knew. This video is an invitation to step into that mystery, to explore the edges of our understanding where history blurs into legend. We are about to embark on a journey to 25 of the most baffling sites and artifacts ever discovered. From the mind-boggling precision of megalithic structures cut and moved with a precision that rivals our own machinery, to ancient devices that hint at a sophistication we are only just beginning to comprehend, each one is a piece of a puzzle we are still trying to solve. These are not just old ruins, they are active crime scenes in the investigation of human history, places where the evidence on the ground doesn't match the official story. Archaeologists and historians stare at these wonders with a mixture of awe and frustration, because the how and the why remain tantalizingly out of reach, sparking debates that rage to this day. So prepare to have your perception of antiquity challenged. We will travel from the sun-scorched plains of Egypt to the deep jungles of South America, from the high mountains of Peru to the isolated islands of the Pacific. Each location holds a secret, a technological or artistic feat that seems to defy the era from which it came. This is more than a list, it is a journey into the heart of human ingenuity and the enduring power of the unknown. Get ready to explore the 25 most unexplained wonders of the ancient world, and to discover that our past might be far stranger and far more incredible than we ever dared to imagine. Our journey begins, as so many investigations into the ancient world do, with the single most iconic and baffling structure on the planet, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We have all seen the pictures, we know its silhouette against the desert sky, but familiarity has a way of blinding us to its true, impossible nature. This isn't just a big pile of rocks, it is a monument of such staggering precision that it continues to humiliate our modern understanding of engineering and astronomy. Consider its placement on the Earth. The pyramid is aligned to the cardinal points with an accuracy that is almost supernatural. Its base is oriented to true north with an error of just 3/60ths of a single degree. To put that in perspective, even with all our satellite technology and laser-guided instruments, achieving such a perfect alignment today would be a remarkable feat. The builders didn't just point it in the general direction of north, they found true north with a level of exactness that seems to belong to a different era entirely. Then we come to the mathematics frozen in stone. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height gives us a value extremely close to 2 times pi, the fundamental constant of a circle. How could a culture that, as far as we know, had not yet fully refined the wheel, encode a mathematical ratio that defines circles into a square-based structure? Furthermore, the dimensions of the king's chamber inside the pyramid incorporate another mysterious number, the golden ratio, or phi, a proportion often associated with aesthetics and harmony found throughout nature. These aren't just random measurements, they feel intentional, like a message baked into the very blueprint of the building. But the mystery only deepens when we look at the construction itself. We are talking about 2,300,000 individual blocks of stone, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, with some of the granite blocks in the inner chambers weighing up to 80 tons. These stones were cut with such precision that you cannot fit a razor blade between them. How were they quarried, transported, and lifted into place? The mainstream hypothesis points to ramps long, sloping embankments of earth and brick that workers would have used to drag the blocks upward. But the logistical problems with this theory are enormous. A ramp to build the upper sections would have required more material than the pyramid itself, and its angle would have become so steep that dragging multi-ton stones up it would have been practically impossible. This has led to alternative suggestions like an internal spiral ramp, though no evidence for such a structure has ever been found. The sheer scale of the labor is almost incomprehensible. The Greek historian Herodotus claimed it took 100,000 men 20 years to build the pyramid. Even if that number is accurate, we are left with a profound question. How did a Bronze Age society with tools of copper and stone achieve a level of stonemasonry that we would struggle to replicate today without powered machinery? The cuts are too clean, the joints too perfect, the alignments too exact. This has fueled speculation about lost techniques, perhaps even technologies that have not survived in the archaeological record. Could the ancient Egyptians have possessed a knowledge of sound or vibration that allowed them to soften stone? Did they have access to a form of concrete casting the blocks in place? Or does the Great Pyramid stand as silent, overwhelming evidence that our timeline of human technological progress is fundamentally flawed? It is a mystery that sits at the very foundation of history, challenging us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the capabilities of our ancestors. But if the Great Pyramid represents a mystery of monumental scale and brute force engineering, our second wonder demonstrates an equally baffling, yet completely opposite form of ancient genius, one of breathtaking miniaturization and intricate complexity. This story begins not in the desert but at the bottom of the sea. In the year 1901, sponge divers exploring a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of the tiny Greek island of Antikythera made a startling discovery. Among the statues and amphorae, they pulled up a lump of heavily corroded bronze and wood that seemed, at first glance, to be little more than a worthless piece of wreckage. It was set aside for months, an unimpressive relic from a 2,000-year-old tragedy. But upon closer inspection, a museum curator noticed something extraordinary. Hidden beneath the crust of corrosion were the faint outlines of gears, precise mechanical gears. This unassuming lump of rock and metal would eventually be recognized as the Antikythera mechanism, and it would utterly shatter our understanding of ancient technology. Through painstaking work using modern tools like X-ray tomography, scientists have been able to peer inside the encrusted object, revealing it to be an incredibly sophisticated analog computer. It wasn't a simple calendar or a decorative object. It was a device of stunning ingenuity, consisting of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden case about the size of a shoebox. By turning a hand crank on the side, the entire mechanism would spring to life, its geared wheels moving in perfect synchrony to calculate the movements of the heavens. The purpose of this ancient machine was nothing short of astronomical. It could predict the positions of the sun and the moon, the phases of the lunar cycle, and even the occurrences of eclipses years in advance. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon, a complex motion known as the lunar anomaly, and it even accounted for the dates of major athletic games like the ancient Olympics. Dials on the back of the mechanism acted as a sophisticated calendar, while pointers on the front displayed the celestial positions against a background of the Greek zodiac. This was not a tool for mere superstition. It was a precise mathematical instrument, a physical representation of the Greeks' advanced understanding of celestial mechanics. It was, in essence, a mechanical simulation of the universe. The discovery sent a shockwave through the scientific and historical communities. The device has been dated to between 270 and 200 BC, a period of great learning in the Hellenistic world. But the problem, the truly mind-bending part of this story, is that nothing even remotely as complex appears again in the historical record for over a millennium. We have a vast gap in our technological timeline. Following the Antikythera mechanism, the next known devices with a similar level of mechanical complexity are the astronomical clocks built in medieval Europe during the 14th century. For more than 1,000 years, this level of engineering precision seems to have vanished completely from human civilization. What does this imply? The existence of the Antikythera mechanism strongly suggests that the technological capabilities of the ancient Greeks were far more advanced than we ever imagined. It wasn't a one-off fluke, but rather a product of a sophisticated tradition of instrument making. The writings of the Roman orator Cicero mention a device built by the great inventor Archimedes that could model the planetary motions, a sphere that sounds remarkably similar in function. The Antikythera mechanism is the only physical evidence we have that such descriptions were not mere legend. It stands as a haunting relic of a lost world of science, a single surviving glimpse into a level of mechanical knowledge that was almost entirely wiped out by the turbulent collapse of the classical world. Its silent gears ask us a profound question. How much of our ancestors' scientific and technological wisdom has been lost to the fires of libraries, the sinking of ships, and the slow decay of time? This one artifact forces us to reconsider the entire narrative of technological progress, revealing that the path of human ingenuity is not a straight line, but a story with brilliant peaks and devastating valleys of forgotten knowledge. From the intricate clockwork of the ancient Greeks, we now travel across the world and into the stark, open canvas of the Peruvian desert. Here, etched onto the arid plains of the Nazca region, lies a mystery of a completely different kind, one not of complex machinery, but of immense scale and impossible perspective. These are the Nazca Lines, a sprawling collection of hundreds of geoglyphs, giant drawings made by removing the dark, sun-baked pebbles on the surface to reveal the lighter-colored earth beneath. They are not small markings. We are talking about lines and shapes that stretch for miles across the pampas de Jumana, some individual figures extending over 200 meters in length. They depict a stunning variety of forms: a hummingbird with a long, delicate beak, a spider with one leg gracefully extended, a monkey with a spiraling tail, a whale, a dog, and even a strange humanoid figure often called the astronaut. Alongside these biomorphic designs are countless straight lines that run arrows straight to the horizon, vast trapezoids and spirals that seem to swirl into the earth itself. The central, most baffling characteristic of these lines is that they were clearly designed to be seen from above. From ground level, the shapes are largely indecipherable. You might see a long, shallow groove in the earth, but the full, magnificent image of a condor or a tree is completely lost. It is only from the vantage point of hundreds of feet in the air that the grand design reveals itself in all its glory. This fact, more than any other, is what has fueled the mystery for nearly a century. Why would a people who, as far as we know, had no means of flight, create such monumental art that they themselves could never properly perceive? This has led to a wide spectrum of theories attempting to explain their purpose. One of the earliest and most persistent ideas is that the line served as a giant astronomical calendar, proposed by historian Paul Kossock and later championed by German mathematician Maria Reich. This theory suggests the lines pointed to key positions of the sun, moon, and stars on the horizon, marking solstices and equinoxes to guide agricultural cycles. While some lines do align with celestial events, this explanation fails to account for the vast majority of the animal and plant figures, which don't seem to have any obvious astronomical correlation. A more culturally grounded theory posits that the lines were sacred pathways walked by priests during important rituals. The trapezoidal shapes could have been ceremonial plazas where communities gathered, and the long, straight lines might have been processional routes leading to sources of water, the most precious resource in the desert. The figures themselves could have been religious symbols, prayers to the gods for rain and fertility, meant to be seen not by people but by the deities in the sky. This idea connects the lines directly to the known spiritual beliefs of the Nazca people, for whom nature and the elements were deeply sacred. Then, of course, there is the more speculative notion that has captured the public imagination, the idea that the lines were landing strips or signals for extraterrestrial visitors. This theory, popularized in the 1960s, argues that the precision and scale of the geoglyphs are simply beyond the capabilities of a pre-industrial society without some form of aerial guidance. While a captivating idea for science fiction, archaeologists point out that there is no material evidence to support it. The technology to create the lines was in fact remarkably simple. The real mystery is not the how of the construction, but the why of the design. So how did the Nazca people achieve such precision without flying? The answer likely lies in basic but brilliant surveying techniques. Using a series of stakes and ropes, a small team could have scaled up a master design drawn on a much smaller surface. By establishing a central point and using a long cord as a giant compass, they could create perfect circles and smooth curves. Straight lines could be achieved by lining up a series of stakes over long distances, a technique still used today. The stability of the desert environment, with its minimal rain and wind, has preserved these delicate markings for over 2,000 years. The achievement was not in advanced technology, but in meticulous planning, communal effort, and a deep, patient understanding of their landscape. Yet the question of purpose still lingers like a heat haze over the desert. Perhaps the most profound aspect of the Nazca Lines is that they represent a different kind of intelligence, one focused on a cosmic or divine audience rather than a human one. They are a testament to the human drive to create, to leave a mark so vast and enduring that it transcends the limitations of a single lifetime, or even the perspective of the human eye. They stand as a monumental act of faith, a message to the heavens etched into the very skin of the earth, whose true meaning remains as elusive as the winds that sweep across the plains. While the Nazca Lines present a mystery of two-dimensional art on a colossal scale, our fourth wonder takes the puzzle of ancient geometry into the third dimension with a startling degree of perfection. Deep in the jungles and river deltas of Costa Rica, a series of enigmatic objects began to surface quite literally in the 1930s, as the United Fruit Company cleared vast tracts of land for banana plantations. Workers started to uncover incredible stone spheres, some partially buried, others resting openly on the forest floor. These were not rough, rounded boulders. They were man-made artifacts of such precision that they seemed to defy the tools and methods believed to be available to the pre-Columbian cultures of the region, known collectively as the Dikwis people. The first and most immediate characteristic that strikes you about these spheres is their shape. They are almost perfectly round. Many of them achieve a level of sphericity that is astonishing, with variations in diameter of less than 2 centimeters across spheres that are over 2 meters wide. The largest of these stones weighs an incredible 16 tons, while the smallest are no bigger than a basketball. They were carved from a tough volcanic rock called gabbro, a material as hard as granite, and the surfaces of the best preserved examples are remarkably smooth, polished to a high sheen. The fundamental question is how a society without metal tools, using only stone hammers and other primitive instruments, could have achieved such geometric perfection. The process would have involved an immense amount of patient labor. Archaeologists suggest the technique was one of pecking, grinding, and polishing. Craftsmen would have first roughly shaped a large boulder by repeatedly striking it with stones of equal or greater hardness. Then, using a combination of sand, water, and smoother stones, they would have painstakingly ground down the surface, slowly refining the shape into a near-perfect sphere over what must have been many generations for a single stone. But the mystery doesn't end with their creation, it extends to their transportation. Many of these massive spheres were found miles from the nearest known quarry. How were 16-ton balls of solid rock moved through dense, mountainous jungle and across rivers? The most plausible theory suggests they were transported on log rollers, pulled by large teams of people using ropes made from vines. This would have been an incredibly dangerous and coordinated effort, a feat of communal engineering that speaks volumes about the social organization of the Dikwi's culture. Yet, the sheer difficulty of moving these objects so far without them cracking or sinking into the soft earth remains a point of awe and speculation. The greatest frustration for archaeologists, however, is that the original context of these spheres has been almost completely lost. When they were discovered in the 20th century, they were seen as curiosities. Many were dynamited by treasure hunters believing they might contain gold. Others were rolled away from their original positions by plantation workers, or even taken to adorn government buildings and private gardens across Costa Rica. This widespread disturbance means we have very few records of how the spheres were originally arranged. This loss of context has made it incredibly difficult to decipher their true purpose. Were they astronomical markers? Some researchers have noted that groups of spheres seem to be aligned in patterns that could correspond to celestial events or star formations. They might have functioned as a kind of stone calendar, much like Stonehenge, marking solstices or other significant dates for an agricultural society. Another compelling theory is that they were powerful status symbols. The spheres could have been placed in prominent positions near the homes of chiefs or important elders, signifying their wealth, power, and lineage. The size and number of spheres a leader possessed might have directly reflected their social standing. Alternatively, they may have held a religious or mythological significance, representing celestial bodies like the sun or moon, or perhaps symbols of perfection and harmony in the cosmos. Their placement in public spaces could have marked territorial boundaries, sacred sites, or gathering places for community decisions. Without their original positions, these theories remain educated guesses. The stone spheres of Costa Rica stand as a humbling reminder of how much we can lose when we don't understand what we are seeing. They are majestic, silent monuments to a sophisticated culture whose worldview we can only partially reconstruct. They demonstrate an obsession with geometric perfection and a mastery of stoneworking that challenges our perceptions of so-called primitive societies. Each sphere is a perfect, polished question mark, a testament to human ingenuity whose original message, carved in stone and placed carefully in the landscape, has been tragically scrambled by time and carelessness. Leaving behind the silent, monumental puzzles of stone, we now turn to a mystery made of vellum and ink, one that fits in your hands but has confounded the world's greatest minds for centuries. This is the Voynich manuscript, a book that is arguably the most stubbornly enigmatic text ever discovered. Its pages are filled with flowing, elegant handwriting in a script that is completely unknown, an alphabet of strange, looping characters that form a language which has resisted every single attempt at translation. It is not written in a code that has been cracked, nor in a lost dialect that has been identified. It is, from its first page to its last, utterly and profoundly incomprehensible. The mystery deepens with the book's bizarre and captivating illustrations. They are beautiful, detailed, and utterly alien. One section is dedicated to botanical drawings, but these are no ordinary herbs or flowers. The plants are fantastical hybrids with roots, leaves, and pods that do not correspond to any known species on Earth. They look like something from a dream or perhaps from another world. Another section contains intricate astronomical and astrological charts, showing circular diagrams of the sun, moon, and stars, but the constellations are unrecognizable, the celestial arrangements unlike any known system. Perhaps most strangely, there is a lengthy biological section filled with illustrations of small, naked women, often referred to as nymphs, bathing in, or presiding over a complex network of interconnected tubes and vessels that resemble an intricate, almost anatomical plumbing system. The final part of the manuscript is a collection of what appear to be herbal recipes, each paragraph of dense text accompanied by a star in the margin, but the ingredients and instructions are, of course, a complete mystery. The book's known history begins in the early 17th century, when it was purchased by an alchemist and book collector named Georg Bersch in Prague. He was as baffled as we are and sent copies of the script to scholars hoping for a decipherment, but none could help. The manuscript eventually found its way to Athanasius Kircher, a renowned Jesuit scholar known for his interest in ancient languages, but even he failed to make sense of it. For 200 years, it disappeared from public view, resurfacing in 1912 when a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich purchased it from a Jesuit college in Italy. It was Voynich who brought it to the world's attention, and it has borne his name ever since. Carbon dating has since confirmed that the vellum on which it is written dates to the early 15th century, placing its creation firmly in the medieval period. Since its rediscovery, the Voynich manuscript has become a magnet for the world's top cryptographers and linguists, many of whom cut their teeth during wartime code-breaking efforts. From intelligence agencies like the United States National Security Agency to renowned academics, dozens of the sharpest analytical minds have applied every tool at their disposal: frequency analysis, pattern recognition, comparisons to every known language and cipher system, and all have walked away empty-handed. The text has statistical properties of a real language. It is not random gibberish. The word lengths and character repetitions follow patterns consistent with, for example, Latin or Arabic. But the meaning remains locked away, tauntingly just out of reach. This repeated failure has led to several competing theories about its origin. Some believe it is a very clever, elaborate hoax created to deceive a wealthy patron. The argument is that the text is meaningless, but crafted with such skill that it mimics the structure of language. The problem with this theory is the sheer, relentless consistency of the hoax across more than 240 pages. It would have been an astronomically tedious and pointless endeavor for a medieval forger. Another theory posits that it is written in a constructed language, an early artificial code meant to convey secret knowledge, perhaps related to alchemy or medicine. The most tantalizing possibility is that it is written in a genuine, but otherwise entirely extinct, natural language that was never recorded anywhere else and whose key has been lost to time. More recent analysis has suggested that the patterns of the words might fit a Semitic or Romance language basis, but no definitive link has been proven. The illustrations offer little concrete help. The nymphs and tubes could depict a medieval understanding of human reproduction and balneology, the study of baths, or they could represent something far more esoteric. The unidentifiable plants might be symbolic, or they could be accurate drawings of species that have since gone extinct. Every path of inquiry leads to a dead end, leaving the Voynich manuscript as the ultimate literary cold case. It sits in the Bainach Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, a beautiful, frustrating, and perfect cipher. It is a book that promises profound knowledge on every page, a secret history of science or magic, yet whose voice has been silenced by the centuries, challenging us to wonder if some mysteries are simply never meant to be solved. Shifting our focus from the cryptic pages of a manuscript to a remote, windswept island in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, we encounter a wonder defined not by hidden meaning but by sheer stoic presence. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is home to one of the world's most iconic and haunting archaeological landscapes, the Moai. These are not merely heads as they are often called. Recent excavations have revealed that most of the nearly 900 statues are in fact full-bodied figures, buried up to their necks by centuries of soil erosion and sediment. They stand as silent, brooding giants, their blank eyes staring inland from massive stone platforms called ahu, their backs perpetually turned to the ocean from which their creators arrived. The mystery of the Moai is twofold. How were they made, and more importantly, Why were they made with such relentless, almost frantic intensity? The statues were carved from compressed volcanic ash found in a single quarry, the crater of an extinct volcano called Rano Raraku. The scale of work here is staggering. The largest Moai ever carved, nicknamed El Gigante, lies unfinished in the quarry, measuring an almost unbelievable 72 feet in length and weighing an estimated 165 tons. Even the average-sized Moai that was successfully transported weigh between 10 and 20 tons. Using only stone hand tools called toki, teams of craftsmen would painstakingly peck away at the rock face, freeing the statue from the bedrock and carving its features with remarkable detail: strong brows, long noses, and thin lips set in an expression of formidable authority. But the truly mind-boggling part of the story begins once the statue was freed. The quarry is inland, yet the Ahu platforms are scattered all around the island's coastline, sometimes miles away. How did a society with no wheels, no draft animals, and no metal move these multi-ton monoliths across rugged, uneven terrain? For decades, the prevailing theory involved log rollers and sledges, with large teams of people slowly dragging the statues along a path lubricated with sweet potatoes or other vegetation. This method, while plausible, would have consumed enormous amounts of wood, a resource that, as we will see, was becoming critically scarce. A more recent and captivating theory, championed by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, suggests the Moai were literally walked to their destinations. In this scenario, teams would use ropes to rock the statue from side to side, pivotally balancing it on its curved belly. With a coordinated rhythm, the statue could be inched forward in an upright position, effectively walking across the landscape. Experimental archaeology has shown this method to be surprisingly efficient, requiring a smaller crew than previously thought. However, this theory is not without its critics, who point to the risk of the statue's bases chipping or cracking under the stress, evidence of which is found on some fallen Moai. The debate continues, a testament to the incredible engineering puzzle the Rapa Nui people left behind. This brings us to the deeper, more sobering mystery of Easter Island, the societal drive behind this monumental effort. The Moai were not just art, they were the physical embodiment of ancestry and power. They are believed to represent deified ancestors, and erecting a larger, more impressive statue on a coastal ark was a way for a clan to demonstrate its mana or spiritual power and its connection to the land. This created a powerful and perhaps ultimately destructive feedback loop. As clans competed for status and resources, the drive to carve and erect bigger, more elaborate Moai intensified. This required more people, more food, and crucially, more wood for transportation and for the tools and levers needed in construction. This leads to the island's great tragedy. When Polynesian settlers first arrived around 1200 AD, pollen samples indicate the island was covered in a lush forest, including a now extinct species of giant palm tree. But as the human population grew and the statue-building cult reached its peak, the forests were cleared for agriculture, for canoe building, and for the rollers and levers to move the Moai. The trees were cut down faster than they could regenerate. The result was an ecological catastrophe. Without trees, the soil eroded, crop yields fell, and the islanders could no longer build the seafaring canoes needed for deep-sea fishing. The society collapsed into warfare over dwindling resources, and oral histories tell of clans toppling each other's Moai in a symbolic destruction of their rivals' power. The very statues that were meant to ensure prosperity and lineage became symbols of a societal downfall. The story of the Moai is therefore a profound and cautionary tale. It is a story of incredible human ingenuity, of a people who achieved a monumental feat of engineering with the most basic of tools. But it is also a story about the precarious balance between ambition and sustainability. The silent stone faces of Easter Island are not just mysterious artifacts. They are a powerful reminder of how the drive for cultural expression and status, when divorced from the limits of the environment, can lead a civilization to the very brink. They stand as a monument to both the heights of human achievement and the depths of its potential folly. Now we move from the colossal mysteries of statues and manuscripts to a far smaller, but no less electrically charged enigma, one that could literally rewrite the history of technology. In the basement of the National Museum of Iraq in Baghdad sits a most unassuming artifact, a small, bright yellow clay jar about the size of a man's fist. It would look like any other ancient pottery fragment were it not for its contents. Inside this simple jar, archaeologists found a sealed copper cylinder, and within that cylinder, an iron rod. The jar itself showed signs of having been sealed with an asphalt plug, which would have held the metal assembly firmly in place. This peculiar object, along with several others like it, was unearthed in the 1930s from a 2,000-year-old Parthian village near Baghdad. The Parthians were a formidable empire that ruled the region between about 250 BC and 225 AD, a culture known for its skilled warriors and sophisticated trade networks, but not, according to our history books, for anything resembling electrical science. The controversy ignited when a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig, who was working at the museum in 1938, examined the object and proposed a startling theory. He suggested that this clay jar was not a mere storage container, but an ancient electric battery. The scientific principle behind his idea is straightforward, yet brilliant. If the jar were filled with an acidic or alkaline liquid, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, the chemical reaction between the electrolyte solution and the two dissimilar metals would create a flow of electrons. The iron rod would act as the anode, surrendering electrons, and the copper cylinder would serve as the cathode, receiving them. This would generate a small but measurable electric potential between the two metals, essentially creating a primitive galvanic cell. In fact, when modern researchers built replicas of the Baghdad battery and filled them with electrolytes like grape juice, they consistently produced a voltage of between 1 and 2 volts. It's not enough to power a light bulb, but it is a genuine, usable electric current. So, if it was a battery, what on earth would the Parthians have used it for? The most compelling application proposed is electroplating, the process of using an electric current to deposit a thin layer of one metal onto the surface of another. The Parthians were master goldsmiths and silversmiths, and we know they developed a technique for gilding objects, often using a toxic mercury-based method. But could they have also had a cleaner electrochemical technique? A small battery like this, linked together in a series to create a stronger current, could have been used to electroplate a layer of gold or silver onto a base metal like copper or iron, creating beautiful, inexpensive jewelry that looked as valuable as solid gold. This would have been a revolutionary secret of the trade. Alternatively, the mild electric current could have had a medicinal or religious purpose. Ancient Greek and Egyptian texts describe the use of electric fish like the Nile catfish to deliver shocks for pain relief. Perhaps priests used the subtle tingle from these devices to create a sense of mystical awe during ceremonies, convincing worshippers of their divine connection. However, many mainstream archaeologists remain deeply skeptical, offering a much more mundane explanation. They argue that the objects are simply storage jars for sacred religious scrolls. The iron rod, in this view, was simply a core around which a valuable parchment or papyrus scroll was wound. This scroll would then have been placed inside the protective copper cylinder, and the entire assembly sealed within the clay jar with asphalt to protect it from moisture and insects. This was a known practice for storing important documents. The skeptics point out that there are no wires or conductors found with the jars, no evidence of them being connected in series, and most damningly, not a single electroplated object from the period has ever been conclusively proven to have been made using electricity rather than well-known chemical or mechanical gilding techniques. The debate ultimately hinges on a single, frustrating fact: we lost the original context. The jars were not excavated with the meticulous care we would use today. We don't know exactly how they were arranged in the ground or what other objects were found alongside them that might have hinted at their use. The battery theory is tantalizing because it demonstrates a working knowledge of electrochemical principles 1,000 years before such things were officially discovered in Europe. It suggests a flash of proto-scientific insight that may have been lost, much like the knowledge behind the Antikythera mechanism. Yet, the scroll jar theory is equally plausible, grounded in common archaeological practices. The Baghdad battery, therefore, stands as a powerful symbol of the limits of our knowledge. It is a humble clay pot that forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. Did an ancient civilization stumble upon the basic principles of electricity, using it for practical or ceremonial purposes, and then see that knowledge vanish into the sands of time? Or are we, with our modern technological biases, simply projecting our own world onto a simple storage vessel, seeing a battery where an ancient scribe saw only a library? The object itself offers no definitive answer, its secret still insulated by 2 millennia of silence. High in the Andes, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, lies a fortress that defies both time and conventional understanding of stonework. This is Sacsayhuamán, a complex of monumental walls whose scale and precision are so staggering that when the Spanish conquistadors arrived, they refused to believe it was built by the Inca people. They were convinced such a feat could only be the work of demons or a lost race of giants. The most awe-inspiring feature is its zigzagging series of 3-tiered walls, constructed from enormous limestone blocks, some weighing well over 100 tons. But it's not their size alone that baffles engineers and archaeologists. It's the mind-bending precision with which these megalithic stones were assembled. Each block is a unique, irregular polygon with as many as 12 different sides and angles. Yet they fit together with such flawless jigsaw puzzle perfection that you cannot slide a single piece of paper, let alone a razor blade, between them. This is not simple stacking. It is a form of stone knitting where the seams between the blocks are so tight that the walls have survived centuries of earthquakes that have reduced later Spanish colonial buildings to rubble. The Incas designed their walls to dance with the earth, to move and settle without collapsing. The mystery of Sacsayhuamán begins at the quarries. The limestone was sourced from a site located several kilometers away, up and down steep mountain slopes. The Inca had no knowledge of the wheel, no draft animals like horses or oxen, and no system of pulleys. So how did they transport these behemoth stones? The prevailing theory involves an immense communal effort. It's believed that hundreds, perhaps thousands of workers would maneuver the stones using log rollers, ropes made from llama hide, and a system of earthen ramps. They would have used levers to inch the stones along, a painstaking process that might have taken months for a single block to complete its journey. Some indigenous legends, however, tell a different story. They speak of a magical plant extract that could soften stone, allowing the builders to mold the rock like clay before it hardened back to its original strength. While there's no scientific evidence for such a substance, the seamless joints have led some to wonder if the Incas possessed a lost technique of acoustic levitation or a method of heating and polishing the stone to achieve a near-liquid fit. Once on site, the shaping of the stones presents an even greater puzzle. How did they achieve such perfect, interlocking fits without iron tools? The Inca toolkit consisted primarily of harder stones like bronze and andesite for hammering and grinding. The process was one of relentless trial and error. Stonemasons likely shaped each block by repeatedly rubbing it against its neighbor, using sand and water as an abrasive. They would have raised a block into a preliminary position, marked the high points of contact, lowered it, and then painstakingly pecked away at those points before raising it again to check the fit. This cut-and-try method, repeated over and over for every single angle on every single stone, represents an almost unimaginable investment of time, patience, and skill. It speaks to a society that valued permanence and perfection above all else. viewing the construction of these walls not as a chore, but as a sacred communal duty. Beyond the how, the very design of the walls holds a deeper symbolic meaning. The zigzag pattern is not random. From above, the walls are said to represent the teeth of a puma, the sacred animal whose shape the city of Cusco was designed to mimic. In this grand plan, Sacsayhuamán formed the head of the puma. This connection to a powerful predator symbolized the strength and protective nature of the fortress guarding the city below. Another compelling interpretation links the zigzags to lightning bolts. The Inca deity Illapa was the god of lightning, thunder, and rain, a crucial force for an agricultural society. By embodying this powerful celestial phenomenon in stone, the Incas may have been seeking to harness its energy to protect their capital with the very power of the heavens. The walls, therefore, were far more than a military fortification. They were a profound statement of cosmological belief, an earthly representation of divine power, and an eternal testament to the Incas' mastery over their world, both physical and spiritual. From the earthquake-defying walls of the Incas, we journey now to the world of cartography and a document that challenges not just our understanding of ancient geography, but the very timeline of human exploration. In the year 1929, within the dusty archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a German theologian made a discovery that would ignite a controversy lasting to this day. He found a map drawn on gazelle skin parchment dating to the year 1513. It was the work of an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis, who, in his own notes on the map, claimed to have compiled it from numerous source maps, including some that he described as being from the time of Alexander the Great. At first glance, the map is a remarkable artifact of 16th century Turkish scholarship, showing the coastlines of Western Africa, Eastern South America, and even a portion of the North Atlantic. But it is the southernmost section of the map that has become the focal point of an intense debate, a portion that appears to depict a landmass startlingly similar to the continent of Antarctica, a continent that would not be officially sighted by European explorers for another 300 years. The central and most explosive claim made by proponents of the map's extraordinary accuracy is that it shows the Queen Maud Land region of Antarctica, but not as it appears today under a mile-thick sheet of ice. Instead, the coastline on the Piri Reis map seems to depict the continent's true, underlying topography, free from its glacial covering. This is based on comparisons with modern seismic surveys of the subglacial landscape, which have mapped the actual coastline buried beneath the ice. The correlation is uncanny. The map shows bays, rivers, and mountain ranges in positions that align with what we now know lies hidden below. If this interpretation is correct, it implies that the source maps used by Piri Reis were based on knowledge of Antarctica from a time when it was free of ice, a period that, according to mainstream geology, ended millions of years ago, long before the emergence of any human civilization capable of such sophisticated cartography. This has led to the extraordinary suggestion that an advanced seafaring culture, perhaps a precursor to known ancient civilizations, must have existed tens of thousands of years ago, mapping the world with a precision that would not be matched again until the 20th century. Admiral Reis himself provided a fascinating clue to this mystery. In his marginal notes, he wrote that for his map of the Americas, he used a map drawn by Christopher Columbus as one of his sources. But crucially, he also stated that he consulted about 20 older source maps, including 8 Ptolemaic maps from the 2nd century, 4 Portuguese maps of the Indian Ocean and Asia, and 1 Arab map of Asia. Most intriguingly, he mentioned using what he called maps dating from the time of Alexander the Great. This claim points to the Library of Alexandria, that great repository of ancient knowledge, whose destruction represented an incalculable loss to human history. The theory suggests that some of these ancient charts survived, were copied and recopied over centuries, and eventually found their way into the hands of Ottoman scholars, preserving a lost geographical knowledge that was far more advanced than anything in the medieval or early Renaissance world. However, the skeptical viewpoint offers a much more conservative, and many would say more plausible, interpretation. Critics of the ancient advanced civilization theory argue that the southern landmass on the Piri Reis map is not Antarctica at all. They propose it is simply a speculative and somewhat inaccurate extension of the known coast of South America. Early explorers had only partially charted the continent's southern tip, and cartographers of the era often filled in unknown regions with guesswork, sometimes attaching a large, hypothetical southern continent to their maps based on classical geographical ideas. The features that some see as Antarctica's ice-free coast could just as easily be misinterpretations of the Patagonian coastline, the Strait of Magellan, or even the entirely fictional Terra Australis, a massive southern continent that was a standard feature on many maps of the period long before Antarctica's actual discovery. From this perspective, any apparent similarities to the true subglacial coastline of Antarctica are simply coincidental, a case of pareidolia, the human tendency to see meaningful patterns in random data. Furthermore, skeptics point to the map's significant errors. It places South America far too eastward in relation to Africa, a common mistake in early maps. The Caribbean islands are distorted, and the map completely omits about 900 miles of South American coastline between the Amazon River and the area that is hypothesized to be Antarctica. If Piri Reis was working from supremely accurate ancient sources, these glaring inaccuracies are difficult to explain. It seems more likely that he was synthesizing a variety of sources of varying quality, some, like Columbus's charts, based on recent exploration, and others based on much older, more fanciful geographical traditions. The result is a fascinating hybrid, a snapshot of a world in transition, where new discoveries were being awkwardly grafted onto ancient frameworks. The Piri Reis map, therefore, stands at a crossroads of history. It is either a miraculous relic, a fragment of a lost world map drawn by an impossibly ancient civilization, offering a glimpse into a prehistory we can scarcely imagine. Or it is a beautiful and ambitious but ultimately flawed product of its time, a testament to human curiosity rather than to forgotten genius. Its true meaning remains frozen in the ice of interpretation, a cartographic riddle that continues to challenge the borders of our accepted history. Now we journey to the Zhejiang province of China, where a discovery in the early 1990s revealed an underground wonder so vast and so meticulously crafted that it seems to defy both the historical record and the practical limits of human labor. This is the mystery of the Longyou caves. Unlike natural caverns carved by water over millennia, these are unmistakably man-made, a complex of at least 24 enormous grottos hand-carved out of solid sandstone. Their discovery was almost accidental. Local farmers, curious about a small, water-filled pond in their village that never seemed to run dry, decided to pump it out. What they found at the bottom was not a natural spring, but the entrance to a colossal, submerged cavern. When the water was removed, they stepped into a silent, awe-inspiring world that had been hidden for centuries. The sheer scale of the undertaking is almost incomprehensible. Each cave is a massive underground room, with some reaching heights of nearly 100 feet and covering areas larger than a football field. In total, it is estimated that over 1,500,000 cubic feet of stone were painstakingly quarried and removed from the site. To put that staggering volume into perspective, that's enough rock to fill over 15,000 standard dump trucks. The logistics of such an operation are mind-boggling. Where did all that rock go? There are no massive spoil heaps in the surrounding countryside, suggesting the stone was likely transported away for use in other construction projects, adding another layer of complexity to an already monumental task. But it is the craftsmanship within the caves that truly takes your breath away. Every single surface, the walls, the ceiling, and the enormous supporting pillars is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, angled at a consistent 60 degrees. These are not rough utilitarian gouges. They form a beautiful, rhythmic banding that gives the stone a textured, almost sculptural quality. The precision is absolute. The walls are planed flat, the corners are sharp and perfectly angled, and the pillars are distributed with an engineer's eye for structural integrity, holding up the colossal weight of the ceiling above. This is not the work of amateurs digging a simple hole. This is the signature of a highly organized society with master stonemasons who work to a precise, preconceived design. And this is where the historical silence becomes deafening. There is not a single shred of evidence in any Chinese historical text, dynastic record, or local folktale that mentions the construction of these caves. For a project that would have required the labor of thousands of people working for generations, this complete absence of documentation is bizarre. It's as if the entire endeavor was systematically erased from memory. This has led to intense speculation about their age. While some estimates place them around 2,000 years ago during the Qin or Han dynasties, the truth is no one knows for sure. They could be much older, a relic of a lost culture whose achievements were forgotten by the civilizations that came after. The question of their purpose is equally puzzling. One theory suggests they were simply a quarry, mined for the high-quality sandstone used in building nearby cities. The uniform chisel marks could be a byproduct of an efficient, large-scale extraction technique. But this practical explanation feels inadequate. Why go to the extraordinary effort of creating such vast, beautiful, and structurally sound halls? Why carve decorative pillars and smooth every surface to a fine finish if you're just digging for rock? A quarry would be rough and utilitarian, not a masterpiece of underground architecture. Another idea is that they were intended as secret imperial tombs or a subterranean palace for a ruler seeking a hidden fortress. The scale and grandeur would befit an emperor, and the hidden nature of the caves would have provided security. Yet no artifacts, no burial goods, no inscriptions of any kind have ever been found inside. The caves are utterly empty, swept clean of any clues that might point to their use. A third, more intriguing theory connects them to the ancient state of Dongwu, which existed in the region before its absorption into a larger empire. Perhaps the caves were a sacred space, an underground temple complex where rituals were performed away from the light of day. The resonant acoustic properties of the grottos are notable. A whisper in one corner can be heard clearly in another, which could have held spiritual significance. Ultimately, the Longyou caves stand as a profound and humbling enigma. They represent a colossal investment of time, resources, and skill, yet they lead to a historical dead end. They are a monument without a patron, a city without inhabitants, a purpose without a record. They force us to acknowledge that vast chapters of human history, even those involving achievements of staggering scale, can simply vanish from the collective memory, leaving behind only silent, stone questions in the dark. Leaving behind the colossal, man-made caverns of China, we now turn our attention to a mystery etched not into the depths of the earth, but onto its very surface. In a field in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, lies a treasure of Neolithic art that is both breathtakingly beautiful and profoundly perplexing, the Cochno stone. This massive slab of sandstone, measuring about 42 feet long and 26 feet wide, is not remarkable for its size alone, but for the incredible galaxy of symbols that cover its face. For 5,000 years, this stone has borne witness to the passing of countless seasons, its surface a canvas for one of the most intricate and enigmatic collections of prehistoric art ever discovered in Europe. The symbols themselves are a mesmerizing tapestry of ancient geometry. They are primarily known as cup and ring marks. These consist of a central, hollowed-out cup-like depression, often surrounded by concentric circles that are sometimes traversed by a single, radial groove that runs from the center outwards like a spoke on a wheel. But the Cochno stone is far more complex than that. It also features multiple interconnected spirals that swirl and pulse across the rock, along with what appear to be carved footprints and a series of zigzag lines that look almost like ancient lightning bolts. The entire composition is not random. It feels intentional, like a map or a diagram of immense importance, a message carved in a language we have forgotten how to read. The central question, of course, is what this magnificent artwork was meant to represent. The most poetic interpretation suggests it is a celestial map. The swirling spirals could chart the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, while the cup marks might represent specific constellations or celestial events. In this view, the stone was a sophisticated cosmological calendar used by ancient astronomers to track time, predict seasons for planting and harvest, and understand their place in the cosmos. The stone's placement in the landscape, with clear sightlines to the horizon, lends some credence to this idea, as it would have been an ideal location for observing the heavens. Another compelling theory connects the symbols to the spiritual world of the people who created them. The intricate, repetitive patterns, particularly the spirals that seem to draw the eye inward, are strikingly similar to the visual phenomena experienced during altered states of consciousness. These states could be induced by rhythmic drumming, fasting, or the use of psychoactive plants. Anthropologists have noted parallels between these carvings and the art created by indigenous shamans in other parts of the world, who use such symbols to depict their journeys into the spirit realm. The carved footprints on the stone could then be seen as a symbolic pathway, a guide for a spiritual traveler to follow into another world. The stone, therefore, might not be a map of the sky, but a map of the mind, a permanent record of visions encountered in trance states. A more pragmatic interpretation posits that the stone was a territorial marker, denoting the meeting place or sacred ground of a particular tribe or clan. The complex symbols could have served as a kind of heraldry, communicating lineage, alliances, or rights to resources. The footprints might literally indicate where leaders or ritual participants should stand during ceremonies. While this explanation seems less romantic, it grounds the stone in the social and political realities of a community, making it a central, unifying landmark for the living, rather than a portal to the cosmos or the spirit world. The modern story of the Kochno stone adds another layer to its mystery. It was first properly recorded by the archaeologist Ludovic Mac Lellenman in the 1930s. In an attempt to better understand the patterns, man made the controversial decision to have the entire stone painted in white, making the carvings starkly visible. While this helped with his studies, it also dramatically altered the stone's appearance, giving it an almost modern, artistic feel that was far removed from its original state. This act, combined with increasing damage from weathering and vandalism, led to a difficult decision. In 1965, to protect it for future generations, archaeologists made the extraordinary choice to rebury the stone entirely, hiding it beneath the soil. It lay hidden for over 50 years, a secret sleeping beneath a field, known only from casts, photographs, and maps. It was only partially re-excavated in recent years for further study before being covered once more. This act of reburial has only deepened the stone's mystique. It is a wonder that is deliberately kept from view, a masterpiece deemed too precious and too fragile for the modern world. It exists now more as an idea than an object, a legend whispered among archaeologists and enthusiasts. This forces us to ponder the ultimate intention of its Neolithic creators. Did they carve this stone to communicate a specific practical message to their contemporaries, or was their goal something more eternal? Were they trying to create a permanent record of their knowledge, their beliefs, and their vision of the universe, intending for it to be seen and understood for thousands of years to come? Or was the very act of creation itself the most important part, a ritual of marking the land that connected them to their gods and ancestors, with the final image being almost secondary? The Kochno stone offers no easy answers. It is a silent sermon in stone, a 5,000-year-old question mark whose symbols continue to swirl with possibilities, challenging us to decipher not just the marks, but the minds of the people who made them. Just when we think we have the story of human civilization neatly mapped out, archaeology delivers a shock so profound it forces us to tear up the textbook and start again. This brings us to our 12th wonder, a site that didn't just add a new chapter to history, but rewrote the entire introduction. Nestled on a barren hilltop in southeastern Turkey, the discovery of Göbekli Tepe in the 1990s sent a tremor through the world of archaeology that is still reverberating today. For decades, the accepted narrative of human progress was clear and seemingly unshakable. First, humans learned to farm. The agricultural revolution, as it's known, provided a stable, surplus food supply. This surplus allowed people to stop their nomadic wandering and settle down into permanent villages. Only then, freed from the constant struggle to find food, did they have the time, resources, and social organization to develop complex religion, art, and monumental architecture. It was a logical, step-by-step progression, farming, then villages, then temples. Göbekli Tepe utterly demolishes this sequence. Carbon dating reveals that this sprawling complex of stone circles and massive, sculpted pillars was constructed around 11,600 years ago. To grasp how astonishing that date is, consider that Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by a staggering 6,000 years. It was built a full 5,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. But the real bombshell is not just its age, but who built it. At this point in history, humanity was still in the Neolithic era, living as hunter-gatherers. According to our previous understanding, these were small, mobile bands focused solely on survival, following herds of animals and gathering wild plants. They were not supposed to be capable of such a colossal, coordinated enterprise. Göbekli Tepe presents us with an impossible paradox, a cathedral built by nomads. The site itself is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering and artistry. It consists of multiple circular enclosures, each defined by a ring of imposing T-shaped limestone pillars. These are not small stones. The largest pillars stand over 18 feet tall and weigh between 15 and 20 tons. They were quarried from nearby bedrock and transported to the hilltop, a feat that would have required the coordinated labor of hundreds of people. But the true genius of Göbekli Tepe is in the details. The pillars are not blank monoliths. They are covered in breathtakingly sophisticated relief carvings. A menagerie of animals stalks across the stone surfaces: foxes, snakes, wild boars, cranes, and ferocious predators like lions and leopards. The work is crisp, dynamic, and filled with a symbolic power that feels immediate even after more than 100 centuries. These were not simple pictographs. They were a complex symbolic language, a testament to a rich spiritual world. This leads to the site's profound implication, the one that turns our origin story on its head. The prevailing theory, championed by its lead excavator Klaus Schmidt, is that Göbekli Tepe was the world's first temple, a regional pilgrimage center for hunter-gatherer groups. Different clans would have traveled from across the region to gather here for shared rituals, likely led by a powerful, emerging class of shamans or priests. The construction and maintenance of such a sacred place would have required a massive, sustained effort. But how do you feed hundreds or even thousands of people gathered in one spot for an extended period? You cannot rely solely on hunting and gathering. The local environment would be quickly depleted. This is where the revolutionary idea takes hold. Perhaps it was the need to supply these grand religious festivals that actually triggered the domestication of plants and animals. The theory suggests that to feed the builders and pilgrims, these hunter-gatherers began to intentionally cultivate wild grains like einkorn wheat and to herd wild animals like sheep and goats, which are prominently depicted on the pillars. What began as a practical solution to support a spiritual center may have accidentally unlocked the secret of agriculture. The temple came first, acting as a social and economic catalyst. The gathered people, experimenting with the plants and animals around them, stumbled upon farming. Once they had tasted the reliability of cultivated food, there was no going back. They settled around the sacred site and the first villages were born. In this new narrative, it wasn't agriculture that enabled religion. It was religion and the human drive to come together for something greater than daily survival that inspired the invention of agriculture. Of course, such a radical idea is met with healthy debate. Some archaeologists propose that the people at Göbekli Tepe were not pure hunter-gatherers but were already in a transitional phase, practicing a form of pre-domestication cultivation. Others suggest the site may have had a more communal, non-religious purpose, perhaps as a grand feasting site for forging alliances. Yet, the sheer scale and clear symbolic nature of the carvings strongly point to a ritual function. The most haunting mystery of all is why Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried around 8000 BC. Someone, for reasons we can only guess, took the incredible effort to fill in the entire complex with earth, preserving it perfectly for millennia until its rediscovery. Was it a sacred burial, a way to retire a holy place? Was it an act of preservation against an invading culture? We may never know. But what remains is a site that stands as a monumental challenge to our arrogance. Göbekli Tepe forces us to reconsider the very engine of civilization. It suggests that the seeds of our modern world were not sown in the practical need for food, but in the profound, universal human yearning for meaning, community, and a connection to the cosmos. It is a powerful reminder that the greatest wonders are not just those we can see, but the stories they force us to rewrite about ourselves. From the revolutionary temples of Göbekli Tepe, we now travel to the windswept coast of Brittany in northwestern France, where another Neolithic mystery stretches across the landscape on a scale that is almost impossible to comprehend. This is the site of the Karnak stones, an awe-inspiring collection of over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones arranged in long, precise rows that march in perfect alignment for more than 4 kilometers. Arriving at Karnak is like walking onto a giant's game board. The sheer number of stones is overwhelming. They are not placed randomly, but organized into 3 major groups known as the Voynich, Kermario, and Colossal alignments. Each group consists of parallel lines of massive menhirs, some standing over 4 meters tall, progressing in height and stretching into the distance with a geometric precision that feels both mathematical and deeply spiritual. Unlike the towering, isolated circles of Stonehenge, the power of Karnak lies in its relentless repetition, its seemingly endless rows creating a sense of order and purpose that has endured for nearly 6,000 years. The immediate question that confronts every visitor is the most fundamental one. Why? What possible purpose could have driven a Neolithic society to undertake such a monumental, coordinated effort? One of the most compelling theories suggests that Karnak functioned as a gigantic astronomical observatory, a stone computer designed to track the complex cycles of the moon and sun. The alignments of the stones are not arbitrary. Researchers have found that the rows appear to be oriented with significant solar and lunar events, such as the sunrise at the summer and winter solstices. The most fascinating proposal involves the moon's more obscure 18.6-year cycle, known as the lunar standstill. During this period, the moon's rising and setting points on the horizon reach their extreme northern and southern limits. It is thought that the careful arrangement of the Karnak rows could have been used to predict these subtle celestial shifts, allowing Neolithic astronomers to create a sophisticated long-term calendar. This knowledge would have been crucial for determining the timing of seasonal migrations, agricultural cycles, and religious festivals, embedding a deep understanding of the cosmos directly into the landscape. But the heavens are not the only force the builders may have been trying to understand. Another intriguing, though more speculative, theory posits that the stones could have served as a primitive earthquake detection system. The region of Brittany is seismically active, and the proponents of this idea suggest that the menhirs were placed with such precision atop the local geology that even a minor tectonic shift would cause specific stones to wobble or tilt. In this scenario, watchmen could have monitored the alignments, and any deviation from the perfect rows would signal underground activity, providing an early warning for the community. While there is no definitive proof for this theory, it highlights the ingenuity we often attribute to ancient peoples, imagining them using the materials at hand to interpret and respond to the powerful, unpredictable forces of nature. Perhaps the most widely accepted explanation, however, lies in the realm of the sacred. Karnak was likely a vast ritual space, a Neolithic cathedral without a roof. The effort required to erect these stones was immense, signifying that this was a place of supreme importance. The coordinated labor of quarrying, transporting, and raising thousands of multi-ton stones would have required a highly organized society, likely under the direction of a powerful religious or political leader. The site may have been a central pilgrimage destination for scattered communities across the region, a place where they gathered for seasonal ceremonies, funerary rites, or to reaffirm social bonds. The linear arrangements might have marked sacred processional pathways, guiding participants through a ritual landscape towards a focal point, perhaps a burial mound or a ceremonial enclosure. The very act of building Karnak may have been as important as its final form, a communal endeavor that reinforced social cohesion and shared identity, physically manifesting a people's connection to their land, their ancestors, and their gods. The logistical achievement itself is a wonder worthy of deep respect. These stones, primarily local granite, were extracted from outcrops, shaped using stone molds and fire, and then transported overland. The most widely accepted method involves a system of wooden sledges, rollers, and ropes, powered by the sheer muscle of hundreds of people. Teams would have dug pits, gradually tilting each massive stone into an upright position before packing the base with smaller stones for stability. The precision of the alignments over such a long distance suggests the use of sophisticated surveying techniques, likely involving sighting poles and a deep understanding of geometry. This was not the work of a single generation, but a project that spanned centuries, a sustained act of faith and determination passed down from parents to children. The Karnak stones stand today not as a ruin, but as a testament to what a community can achieve when united by a common vision. They are a silent stone poem written across the fields of Brittany, its verses speaking of celestial cycles, earthly tremors, and the enduring human need to build something magnificent that would outlast them all. Far out in the East China Sea, where the Pacific Ocean washes against the Japanese archipelago, lies a mystery submerged beneath the waves, one that challenges the very boundary between nature and human hand. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan's westernmost point, divers exploring in the mid-1980s stumbled upon a site that seemed to defy logic. There, resting on the seafloor at depths of up to 100 feet, lay a colossal structure that looked for all the world like a sunken temple complex. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a massive sandstone formation stretching nearly 500 feet long and rising over 80 feet from the seabed. Its features are what truly capture the imagination: sharp, 90-degree angles, perfectly straight ledges, and what appear to be grand staircases climbing the monument's face. There are twin monoliths that look like giant gateposts, and terraced levels so regular and symmetrical they evoke the steps of a Mayan ziggurat or an ancient altar. The sheer geometry of the place feels intentional, architectural, as if you are swimming through the ruins of a forgotten city. The central, heated debate surrounding Yonaguni is a classic clash between two worldviews. On one side are geologists who argue that this is a spectacular but entirely natural formation. They point to the fact that the rock is sandstone, a sedimentary rock prone to fracturing along straight lines due to its layered nature. The powerful tectonic forces in the region, part of the seismically active Pacific Ring of Fire, have subjected this bedrock to immense stress, causing it to crack and split along natural fault lines. Furthermore, the strong currents that sweep through these waters act like a natural sandblaster, eroding the softer rock and leaving behind the harder, more angular features. This process, known as shoreline weathering, can create remarkably flat surfaces and sharp edges over thousands of years. For geologists, Yonaguni is a masterpiece of natural sculpture, an example of what is called a fault scarp that has been beautifully and coincidentally shaped by the ocean's relentless forces. However, for those who believe the monument is man-made, there are specific features that the natural explanation struggles to account for. The most compelling of these are two perfectly circular holes about 2 feet deep located on the upper terrace. Their symmetry and precision appear drilled, not worn. Nearby, there is a long, straight channel that cuts through the rock, resembling a purposeful pathway or aqueduct. Perhaps most striking is a relief carving that some researchers claim depicts a creature resembling a tortoise, complete with a defined head and a shell-like pattern. If verified as an artificial carving, this would be incontrovertible proof of human involvement. Proponents of the man-made theory, most notably the marine geologist who first brought the site to world attention, Masaaki Kimura, argue that the combination of all these features, the staircases, the right angles, the carvings, and the overall complex layout, is simply too coherent to be the product of random chance. They see the handiwork of a sophisticated culture. This leads to the most tantalizing and speculative aspect of the Yonaguni mystery, its potential age and origin. Professor Kimura and others estimate that for the structure to be submerged at its current depth, it must have sunk beneath the waves at the end of the last ice age, when rising sea levels consumed vast stretches of coastal land. This would place its construction at around 10,000 years ago, a time when, according to mainstream archaeology, humans in this region were simple hunter-gatherers, not builders of monumental stone architecture. This timeline, however, fits perfectly with the legend of a lost Pacific civilization. For over a century, stories have circulated about a sunken continent called Mu, a Pacific equivalent of Atlantis, said to have been the home of an advanced culture that vanished beneath the ocean. Could Yonaguni be a surviving fragment of this mythical land, a physical piece of evidence for a chapter of human history that was swallowed by the sea? The debate is far from settled. Skeptics rightly point out that the human brain is wired to see patterns, especially familiar shapes like stairs and buildings in random natural formations, a phenomenon called pareidolia. They argue that the tortoise carving is more likely a collection of natural fractures that our minds assemble into a recognizable shape. The circular holes could be the result of underwater eddies swirling pebbles in one spot, slowly drilling out a depression over centuries. The fundamental challenge is that if Yonaguni is a man-made ruin, it should show clear signs of tool marks such as the chisel strikes found on other ancient megalithic sites. No such unequivocal evidence has been found. The stone surfaces are smoothed by millennia of water and marine growth, obscuring any potential clues. Yonaguni Monument remains an enigma suspended between two possibilities. It is either one of the most incredible geological formations on Earth, a natural wonder that perfectly mimics human architecture, or it is the ruins of the world's oldest known structure, a lone sentinel from a pre-flood world, silently guarding the secrets of a civilization lost to time. Its truth lies buried not just underwater, but under the weight of interpretation, challenging us to decide where nature's artistry ends and human history begins. Journeying now from the sunken ambiguities of Yonaguni, we venture deep into the heart of mainland China, to a remote and desolate region that holds a mystery forged not in stone but in metal. High on Mount Baigong in Qinghai Province lies a discovery so strange that it seems to belong more to the realm of science fiction than archaeology. Here, investigators found a system of mysterious iron pipes of unknown origin and purpose, embedded directly into the rock of a mountain cave and stretching towards a nearby saltwater lake. This is not the crumbled pottery or stone tools typical of ancient sites. These are metallic conduits, suggesting a level of technological intent that dramatically clashes with the accepted timeline of human history in the area. The mystery begins with the pipe's perplexing context. They are not scattered on the surface but are integrated into the very geology of the mountain. Inside a triangular cave on Mount Bagong, a pipe about 16 inches in diameter protrudes from the interior wall. From the same cave, a series of smaller pipes, some no wider than a toothpick, run straight into the earth, their destination unknown. Even more remarkably, more of these rust-colored iron pipes are found emerging from the bed of Tosan Lake, a saline body of water some 200 feet away, and additional pipe-like structures are scattered across the shoreline. The arrangement feels deliberate, almost like the plumbing for some unknown industrial operation, a notion that becomes even more bizarre when scientists attempted to date them. When samples were analyzed, the results were startling. Tests conducted by the Beijing Institute of Geology suggested the pipes were smelted from iron-rich rock and are estimated to be about 150,000 years old. This date is the core of the enigma. According to mainstream anthropology, anatomically modern humans were only just beginning to spread out of Africa at that time. There were no known civilizations, no advanced metalworking, and certainly no complex industry anywhere on the planet. The very idea of a sophisticated society capable of such metallurgy in prehistoric China is, from a conventional standpoint, impossible. To further complicate the puzzle, subsequent analysis reportedly found that the pipes contained a significant percentage of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide in their composition, and some samples showed unusual radioactive isotopes. This has led to claims that the material is not entirely native to the immediate area, hinting at a complex manufacturing process that sourced materials from different regions. Faced with such an apparent anomaly, it's natural for speculation to run toward extraordinary explanations. The most popular and most controversial theory is that the Bagong pipes are evidence of a prehistoric advanced civilization, perhaps even one that had contact with extraterrestrial visitors. Proponents of this view argue that the pipe's layout and material composition are too sophisticated to be the work of any known ancient human culture. They suggest that the site could have been a facility of some kind, perhaps a mining operation or even an energy plant, built by a lost civilization whose achievements were almost entirely erased by time. The remote, inhospitable location adds to this aura of secrecy, a place where such a project could have been hidden. This theory, while captivating, is criticized for being a classic argument from ignorance. Just because we can't easily explain something with our current knowledge doesn't automatically mean the answer lies with aliens or lost super civilizations. Science, however, offers a fascinating and hotly debated alternative explanation that is both more mundane and, in its own way, just as incredible. Geologists propose that the pipes are not man-made at all, but are instead the result of a rare natural process involving fossilized tree roots. This phenomenon, known as root casting, occurs when mineral-rich water flows through the decaying roots of ancient trees. As the root tissue rots away, it leaves a hollow tube-shaped space in the sediment. Over immense periods of time, minerals like iron oxide and silicon dioxide dissolved in groundwater precipitate out, filling the empty space and solidifying, creating a perfect pipe-like cast of the original root system. These casts can then be exposed by erosion, looking astonishingly like manufactured metal pipes. This process can explain the branching patterns, the varying sizes, and even the high iron content. Yet, the root cast theory is not without its own problems and detractors. Critics point to the high temperature apparently involved in the smelting of the pipes, which seems inconsistent with a low-temperature geological process. They also question whether natural processes could create such straight, parallel, and hollow formations, some of which reportedly show evidence of purposeful construction like flanges at certain joints. The debate between the natural and artificial hypotheses remains intense, largely because the site itself is so remote and difficult to study in detail. The initial reports and analyses have been clouded by a lack of extensive, peer-reviewed scientific investigation, leaving room for interpretation and controversy. The Bagong pipes stand as a powerful reminder of how the natural world can produce formations that mock human ingenuity. They challenge us to discern the line between a true artifact and an incredible geological coincidence. Whether they are the industrial waste of a forgotten age or simply the beautiful, deceptive handiwork of planet Earth, they underscore a humbling truth. Our planet is still capable of presenting us with puzzles that resist easy categorization, forcing us to question what we see and how we interpret the distant past. Moving from the submerged enigmas of Yonaguni and the cryptic pipes of Bagong, we now explore two wonders that challenge our understanding of ancient science, not through ambiguous formations, but through intricate carvings that seem to depict sophisticated technology. First, we travel to the temple complex of Dendera in Egypt, where a controversial relief in the crypts of the Hathor Temple has sparked a debate that cuts to the heart of how we interpret ancient symbols. Carved into a stone wall is a striking image that, to a modern eye, looks uncannily like a giant light bulb. The depiction shows a large, elongated, pear-shaped object reminiscent of a glass bulb. Inside this bulb is a snake, its body stretched out in a wavy line which some interpret as a filament. This serpent is held in place by a pair of arms, and the entire assembly is connected by a cable to a box upon which stands an Egyptian god, while a baboon-like figure holds two knives which are seen by proponents as representing electrical danger. This entire scene has been famously dubbed the Dendera Light, and for those who support the interpretation, it suggests the ancient Egyptians may have possessed a form of electric lighting, perhaps using a primitive version of a Crookes tube or similar gas discharge lamp to illuminate the dark, deep chambers of their temples and tombs. The mainstream Egyptological explanation, however, offers a powerful and symbolically rich alternative. Scholars argue that the so-called light bulb is in fact a highly stylized representation of a lotus flower, a plant of immense religious significance in ancient Egypt, symbolizing creation and rebirth. In this interpretation, the snake emerging from the lotus is a manifestation of the god Harsomptos, a youthful deity associated with the sun and its daily regeneration. The scene is not a technical diagram but a mythological tableau. The filament is the snake itself, a symbol of divine energy and power. The cable is actually a lotus stem, connecting the flower to its roots and the primordial waters of creation, while the supporting arms are the petals of the flower opening up. The box is a jed pillar, a symbol of stability, and the entire composition is a visual story about the moment of creation, where the sun god emerges from the primordial lotus to bring light to the world. This reading is consistent with the deeply symbolic nature of all Egyptian temple art, where every element carries multiple layers of religious meaning. The Dendera Light controversy is a perfect example of the clash between a modern, technological lens and an ancient, symbolic worldview. It forces us to ask whether we are projecting our own understanding onto a culture that expressed its knowledge of the cosmos through myth and metaphor rather than through blueprints and schematics. From the sun-drenched sands of Egypt, we journey high into the Andes of Bolivia to the ruins of Tiwanaku, a city that was already ancient when the Inca Empire rose to power. Here stands one of the most perplexing and precise artifacts of the ancient Americas, the Gateway of the Sun. Carved from a single, massive block of andesite stone, this monumental archway is a masterpiece of stonemasonry, but its true wonder lies in the INTRIC, a Chinese letter covering its surface. At the center of the lintel is a prominent figure, often identified as the staff god or Viracocha, the creator deity who stands radiating power holding a staff in each hand. Flowing out from this central figure are 3 rows of intricate winged beings, often called angel figures, who appear to be running toward the deity in a posture of reverence. There are 48 of these figures in total, 32 with human faces and 16 with condor heads. It is this specific number and arrangement that forms the core of the mystery, leading many researchers to propose that the gateway is far more than a religious icon. It is a sophisticated and accurate calendar encoded in stone. The theory suggests that the gateway of the sun functions as a complex timekeeping device, tracking both solar and lunar cycles with remarkable precision. The 48 figures are thought to represent a calendar cycle. Some researchers propose that the 32 human-faced figures correspond to the 32 solar years it takes for the Gregorian calendar to realign with the solar year, while the 16 condor-headed figures might represent a separate cycle. Others see it as a lunisolar calendar, integrating the movements of the sun and moon to create a system that could predict eclipses and mark important agricultural and ceremonial dates. The sheer mathematical knowledge implied by such a device is staggering. It suggests that the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished between 500 and 1000 AD, possessed an advanced understanding of astronomy and mathematics that rivaled, and in some ways may have surpassed, that of their contemporaries in Europe. The precision of the carvings and the deliberate numbering point to a society that saw time itself as a sacred force to be measured, understood, and honored through their architecture. This leads to the profound question of the builder's knowledge. How did the people of Tiwanaku, without a known written language as we understand it, develop such a complex calendrical system? The gateway stands as a silent testament to a deep, orally transmitted scientific tradition. The civilization's entire urban planning seems to have been astronomically aligned, with structures oriented to the solstices and equinoxes. The gateway of the sun was likely the centerpiece of this cosmic observatory, a focal point where priests could read the passage of time and maintain the harmony between the human, natural, and celestial worlds. The fact that this knowledge was expressed not in a book but in a monolithic, enduring piece of art speaks to its foundational importance to their culture. The gateway is a permanent, stone-bound algorithm, a computer from a time before computers, designed to keep a civilization in sync with the universe. While some of the calendrical interpretations remain speculative, the gateway undeniably encodes a level of astronomical sophistication that challenges the simplistic narrative of ancient South American peoples, revealing them as master astronomers who carved their understanding of the cosmos into a doorway for the ages. From the cosmic calendars and temple lights of ancient civilizations, we now turn to 2 stone-based mysteries separated by thousands of years, yet connected by their enduring enigma. The first takes us to the highlands of Laos, to a landscape that seems to have been the workshop of giants. Scattered across the Xiang Quang Plateau are thousands of massive stone jars hewn from solid rock. These are not small containers. They range in size from large enough to hold a person to over 10 feet tall and weighing several tons. They lie in clusters, over 90 sites in total, some containing just a few of these enigmatic vessels, others boasting hundreds, all silently facing the sky. Their sheer number and scale is the first part of the mystery. Carved from sandstone and granite, their origins are dated to the Iron Age, somewhere between 500 BC and 500 AD, but the culture that created them left no written records, no cities, and no other monumental architecture to explain their purpose. The most widely accepted theory, supported by archaeological excavations, is that the jars served as funerary urns. Human remains, including bone fragments and burial goods like beads and ceramics, have been found in and around them. Local legend tells of a race of giants who used the jars to brew vast quantities of rice beer to celebrate a great military victory. Another theory posits they were used for collecting monsoon rainwater for traveling caravans along a prehistoric trade route. Yet, each explanation comes with its own set of questions. If they were burial urns, why are the remains so sparse, and why the incredible variation in size? Were the largest jars for royalty and the smaller ones for commoners? And if for water collection, why the meticulous carving and permanent placement, rather than using simpler, more portable methods? The true purpose remains as elusive as the people who carved them, a testament to a unique and forgotten cultural practice. The mystery is compounded by the jar's companions, large carved stone discs that have been found nearby, some featuring intricate human and animal figures. These are thought to be lids, but their precise symbolic meaning is lost. Furthermore, the region holds a darker, more modern secret. The Plain of Jars sits in an area that was heavily bombed during the Vietnam War, leaving the landscape littered with unexploded ordnance. This tragic legacy has made archaeological investigation incredibly dangerous and slow, meaning that the vast majority of the jars remain unexcavated and unprotected. They stand as silent, stoic witnesses to both an ancient mystery and a modern tragedy, their secrets guarded as much by peril as by time. In stark contrast to the ancient, weathered jars of Laos, our next wonder is a monument of startling modernity, one that deliberately crafted its own mystery. In 1980, in a remote field in Elbert County, Georgia, a curious structure appeared. A set of 4 towering granite slabs oriented to the cardinal points supported a capstone and were accompanied by a central pillar and a ground-level tablet. This was the Georgia Guidestones, and it was immediately clear this was no ordinary monument. The most striking feature was the 10 principles engraved upon the slabs in 8 different modern languages, from English and Spanish to Swahili and Hindi. A shorter message was also inscribed on the capstone in 4 ancient scripts: Babylonian cuneiform, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. The messages advocated for a future age of reason, with directives that ranged from the pragmatic, like maintain humanity under 500,000,000 in perpetual balance with nature, to the philosophical, such as guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, and avoid petty laws and useless officials. The Guidestones were shrouded in secrecy from the start. They were commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed to represent a small group of Americans who wished to leave a message for future generations. He paid for the project in full and vanished, his true identity never revealed. This anonymity fueled intense speculation. Were the Guidestones the work of a secret society, perhaps Rosicrucians, given the chosen name? Were they a blueprint for a post-apocalyptic world designed to guide survivors in rebuilding civilization? Critics saw them as promoting a sinister, elitist agenda, particularly the first directive calling for a massive reduction in global population, which they interpreted as a call for eugenics. Supporters, however, viewed them as a noble, environmentalist plea for sustainability and global harmony, a set of common-sense principles for avoiding the pitfalls that could destroy civilization. The monument stood for 40 years as a polarizing touchstone for conspiracy theories, philosophical debate, and simple curiosity. It was a modern megalith that spoke directly to the anxieties of the nuclear age and the growing concerns about environmental degradation. Unlike the ancient wonders whose creators are lost to time, the Georgia Guidestones mystery was intentionally manufactured by its builders. Then, in 2022, the mystery took a dramatic turn when the structure was heavily damaged in an explosion and subsequently demolished by the county for safety reasons. The destruction erased the physical monument but amplified its legend. Were the Guidestones a genuine attempt to guide future humanity or an elaborate postmodern art project? Their physical presence is now gone, but the questions they raised about our future and the identity of those who sought to shape it linger more powerfully than ever. Together, the Plain of Jars and the Georgia Guidestones form a fascinating dialogue across millennia. One is an ancient mystery whose purpose we can only guess at, a relic of a forgotten world. The other is a modern mystery whose purpose was explicitly stated, but whose authors and ultimate intentions remain provocatively hidden. A stone message from our own time whose full meaning may only be understood by generations yet to come. Our journey now takes us into the realm of two of the most contentious and hotly debated artifact mysteries, stories that blur the line between groundbreaking archaeological discovery and elaborate hoax so completely that the truth may be forever out of reach. We begin high in the remote Bayan-Ha Mountains of China with a tale that sounds like it was lifted directly from a science fiction screenplay. In 1938, according to the story, a Chinese archaeologist named Kai Pu-Te was exploring a series of interconnected caves when he and his team made a startling discovery. Buried in the ancient dust of the cave floor were hundreds of stone discs, each about 9 inches in diameter with a perfectly round hole in the center, resembling primitive stone records or phonograph discs. But the real mystery was etched onto their surfaces, a fine, spiraling groove that, upon closer inspection, was found to be a continuous line of tiny, unknown hieroglyphic writing. The narrative takes an even more extraordinary turn when we learn what those hieroglyphics supposedly revealed. A professor at Beijing University named Tsum Amnui allegedly succeeded in translating the script in 1962. The story claims the inscriptions told a breathtaking story of a spacecraft that crash-landed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. The occupants, a group of beings called the Dropa, found themselves stranded on Earth. Unable to repair their ship or communicate with the local Ham tribespeople, who initially feared and hunted them, the Dropa eventually found a way to coexist. The discs were said to be their recorded history, a permanent account of their tragic exile on an alien world. To add a layer of eerie biological evidence, the tale includes the discovery of small, fragile skeletons in the caves with unusually large skulls and slender bodies, which proponents point to as the remains of the Dropa aliens themselves. The problem with this incredible story is that it exists almost entirely outside the boundaries of verifiable science. No reputable archaeological journal ever published Professor Tsum Amnui's findings. The very name Tsum Amnui does not sound like a standard Chinese name, leading many to question if the scholar ever existed. The discs themselves, which should be revolutionary artifacts, have seemingly vanished. Apart from a few grainy, unverifiable photographs, there is no physical evidence that they were ever studied by a major institution. The entire account is propagated through articles in fringe magazines and books, with each retelling adding new layers of dramatic detail. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the Dropa stones as a complete fabrication, a classic example of a mythical archaeological find that is perpetuated because it captures the imagination so powerfully. The story ticks every box for a compelling alien encounter narrative: ancient astronauts, a crashed UFO, a cryptic message, and even skeletal proof. But without a single piece of tangible evidence to back it up, it remains a fascinating, yet almost certainly fictional, chapter in the annals of unexplained mysteries. This tangled web of potential hoax and fervent belief finds a strange parallel on the other side of the world, in the dusty soil of Peru. Here, the mystery revolves around the Ica stones, a collection of over 15,000 carved andesite rocks that began surfacing in the 1960s. A local physician, Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquia, became the primary collector and promoter of these stones, which were reportedly dug up by farmers from ancient tombs. The carvings on the Ica stones are what make them so explosively controversial. They depict scenes that directly challenge our understanding of natural history. There are clear, unmistakable images of humans living alongside and even riding dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosaurs. Other stones show figures using telescopes to study the stars, performing complex medical procedures like cesarean sections and heart transplants, and domesticating long-extinct animals. If authentic, these stones would completely rewrite human history, suggesting that an advanced civilization with knowledge of paleontology and advanced medicine existed millions of years ago. Dr. Cabrera developed an elaborate theory to explain the stones. He believed they were a library left by a superior, ancient race as a warning to future humanity, a civilization that had achieved a technological level comparable to our own before being wiped out by a global catastrophe. He amassed a private museum filled with these stones, arranging them by theme to tell their story. For years, the mystery deepened, captivating those who questioned the orthodox timeline of human evolution. However, the foundation of this mystery crumbled in the 1970s when the primary source of the stones, a farmer named Basilio Ushuaia, confessed to a journalist. Ushuaia admitted that he and his family had carved the stones themselves, using simple tools like a dental drill. He explained that he would then age the stones by baking them in cow dung to give them an ancient patina. His motivation was simple and understandable. Selling these ancient artifacts to tourists and collectors was a far more lucrative business than farming. This confession seemed to be the final word, exposing the Ica stones as an elaborate, if highly creative, hoax. But as with so many of these stories, a twist of doubt remains. Even after his confession, Basilio Ushuaia sometimes recanted, saying he only admitted to the hoax to avoid prosecution for selling archaeological treasures, which is illegal in Peru. Some researchers point to the sheer volume and consistency of the stones as evidence that not all of them could have been made by one family. They argue that while many stones are modern fakes, a core collection of genuinely ancient, authentically carved stones may exist, and that the farmer's confession conveniently covered up the illegal trade in real artifacts by muddying the waters entirely. This creates an almost perfect storm of uncertainty. How do you separate the potential truth from the admitted falsehood when they are so thoroughly mixed together? The Ica stones stand as a cautionary tale about the desire to find evidence for our most radical theories. They demonstrate how easily a genuine archaeological mystery can be created and then completely obscured by human ingenuity, greed, and the powerful allure of a past that is far more wondrous than the one we know. From the heated controversies of alleged alien artifacts and modern hoaxes, we now return to solid archaeological ground where the evidence is undeniable, yet the implications are equally world-shaking. Our next three wonders, scattered across China, Bolivia, and Peru, present mysteries not of fantasy, but of tangible human presence and purpose that defy our established maps of history. First, we travel to the unforgiving Taklamakan Desert in western China, a name that translates ominously to place of no return. Here, in the parched sands of the Tarim Basin, archaeologists made a discovery that stopped them in their tracks, a series of incredibly well-preserved mummies dating back as far as 4,000 years. Their European features, tall stature, long noses, light-colored hair, and fair skin were a profound anomaly. These were clearly Caucasoid individuals buried in the heart of Asia thousands of years before the Silk Road was established, at a time when history tells us this part of the world was populated exclusively by East Asian peoples. The most famous of these mummies is the Beauty of Lulan, a woman who died around 1800 BC and was found dressed in fine woolen garments with a simple woven basket by her side. Her features are so perfectly preserved she seems merely asleep. Another, the Chechen man, was buried in vibrant red and blue clothing, his face adorned with a pattern of yellow and purple paint, suggesting a person of high status. The preservation is so remarkable due to the dry, salty soil of the desert, which naturally desiccated the bodies, but it is their genetic identity that causes the real stir. DNA analysis has confirmed their origins lie not in East Asia but to the west, in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and the Black Sea region. This evidence paints a picture of vast prehistoric migrations that we never knew existed. These people, now known as the Tacharians, traveled thousands of miles across the steppes, bringing with them their culture, their language, and technologies like the wheel, evidenced by their horse-drawn chariots buried alongside them. The existence of the Tarim mummies forces a dramatic rewrite of the history of human movement. It reveals that Eurasia was an interconnected world much earlier than we thought, with ancient highways of migration operating millennia before the famed Silk Road. These individuals were not just lost travelers, they established thriving communities in the Tarim Basin, their presence challenging the very definition of ancient cultural and racial boundaries. They stand as silent, leathery-skinned testament to the incredible journeys our ancestors undertook, their story preserved not in scrolls but in their own flesh and bone, waiting for thousands of years to challenge our modern assumptions about the ancient world. From the silent, personal mystery of the mummies in China, we now shift to a wonder of immense landscape-altering scale in the high Andes of Bolivia. While the Nazca Lines in Peru received global fame, their northern neighbors, the Sacsayhuaman Lines, are in many ways even more astonishing. Located in western Bolivia near the towering Sacsayhuaman volcano, this network of ancient paths is the largest collection of geoglyphs on Earth. We are not talking about a few dozen lines, we are talking about a staggering web of over 430 individual paths, covering an area of approximately 8,000 square miles, an expanse nearly 15 times larger than the Nazca Plateau. The lines themselves are not flamboyant animal figures, but are overwhelmingly straight, perfectly linear paths etched into the dark surface of the Earth, revealing the lighter soil beneath. They crisscross the Altiplano in an incredible grid, some running for dozens of miles in arrow straight lines, traversing hills and valleys with unerring determination. The sheer effort involved in creating this network is almost beyond comprehension. The lines were made by generations of people patiently clearing away the dark, oxidized surface stones to expose the lighter, sandy earth below. But why? What was the purpose of this colossal undertaking? Unlike Nazca, there are no clear vantage points from which to view the designs. Their majesty is only apparent from the air. One leading theory is that they were sacred pathways used for pilgrimages to the holy Sacsayhuaman mountain. In this view, the lines were not meant to be seen as art, but to be walked as a spiritual journey, each step a meditation leading toward the sacred peak. Another, more practical theory suggests they were a vast, interconnected system of trails for trade and communication between distant settlements in the harsh, high-altitude environment. The straight lines would have provided the most efficient routes between points, visible from ground level as light-colored tracks against the dark plain, acting as a giant roadmap for travelers. Perhaps the most captivating hypothesis connects the lines to the region's ancient agricultural practices. The area is dotted with strange, spiral-shaped structures that may have been used for cultivating quinoa and potatoes in the extreme climate. Some researchers propose the lines functioned as a sophisticated system for managing water runoff from the occasional rains, channeling precious moisture to these agricultural zones. The lines could have also served as territorial markers for different Aymara-speaking kingdoms, a visible demarcation of land ownership on a scale befitting the gods. The true purpose of the Sacsayhuaman lines likely blends all these ideas: practical, spiritual, and social. They represent a collective project that shaped the landscape for centuries, a monumental expression of a culture that saw its entire world as a canvas to be inscribed with meaning, connecting communities, mountains, and the heavens in one giant, enigmatic design. Our final wonder in this trio brings us back to the realm of legend and stone, to a site that feels less like a ruin and more like a scene from a myth. Near the shores of Lake Titicaca in Peru, at a place known as Sacsayhuamán, there is a rock formation that has captivated the local Aymara people for generations. Carved into a large, natural rock face is a structure that looks for all the world like a giant door or gateway. This is the Gate of the Gods, or Puerta de Hayumaca. The central feature is a large rectangular recess about 23 feet high with a smaller alcove-like door carved into its base, just large enough for a single person to kneel in. The craftsmanship is smooth and precise, and the smaller doorway contains a shallow depression that looks like it was designed to hold something. According to the local legend, this was not a door meant for ordinary humans. In the distant past, during a time of great crisis, an Incan priest named Aramumuru fled the Spanish conquistadors, carrying a powerful golden disc known as the Key of the Gods of the Seven Rays. Reaching this rock, he held the disc up to the small doorway. The stone doorway suddenly activated, glowing with a blue light, and opened a portal to another world. The priest stepped through the gateway, delivering the golden disc to the gods, and vanished from this world, never to be seen again. The legend says that the gateway remains, waiting for the day when the gods will return and open the portal once more, a time when heroes from our world will be able to journey to the lands of the deities. While we can dismiss the tale as folklore, the power of the site is undeniable. The gate is perfectly aligned with spiritual energy lines, or ley lines, according to some mystical traditions, and it has become a major destination for modern spiritual seekers who report feeling strange energies, seeing visions, and even experiencing time slips near the rock. From a more archaeological perspective, the site was likely a sacred huaca, or shrine, for the Incas and the cultures that preceded them. The small doorway could have been a place for offerings, or a symbolic entrance used in shamanic rituals, where a priest would enter the alcove to symbolically pass into the spirit world. The larger recess might have been intended for a massive stone door that was never completed or installed. The Gate of the Gods masterfully blends tangible archaeology with enduring myth. It is a physical place that gives form to a universal human longing, the desire for a passage to another reality, a gateway to the divine. It stands as a monument not to what we know, but to what we dream, a stone canvas upon which generations have projected their hopes for a world beyond our own. And so we arrive at our 25th and final wonder, a site that brings our journey full circle, both literally and thematically. In the quiet German countryside of Saxony-Anhalt, a remarkable discovery emerged not from a grand excavation, but from the bird's-eye view of an airplane. Aerial photographs revealed the faint, circular imprint of a structure hidden beneath a field of wheat, a ghostly pattern that, when unearthed, proved to be one of the most important archaeological finds in Europe, the Göbekli Circle. Dating back to approximately 4,900 BC, this Neolithic enclosure is the oldest known solar observatory in the world, predating Stonehenge by at least 2,000 years. It consists of a simple yet profoundly sophisticated arrangement: 4 concentric rings, a ditch, an earthen bank, and 2 wooden palisade walls with a diameter of about 200 feet. The entire complex had 3 sets of gates, one to the north, one to the southwest, and one to the southeast. It is the placement of these gates that unlocks the entire mystery of Göbekli, revealing a mind-boggling understanding of the cosmos held by people we often dismiss as primitive farmers. The genius of the Göbekli Circle lies in its breathtakingly precise alignment with the solstices. During the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the sun would rise precisely through the southeastern gate and set exactly through the southwestern gate. Conversely, on the summer solstice, an observer standing at the center of the circle would see the sun rise and set at the extreme northern and southern limits of the gates. This was not a rough approximation. The alignments are accurate to within a single day's arc of the sun. This means that nearly 7,000 years ago, a community of early European farmers who had only recently transitioned from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle were marking the solar year with an accuracy that rivals our modern calendars. The circle was, in essence, a massive, open-air calendar constructed from wood and earth, a tool of absolute necessity for an agricultural society whose survival depended on knowing precisely when to plant and when to harvest. The turning points of the year were not just dates on a page, they were moments of profound spiritual significance, and the Göbekli Circle provided a sacred stage for observing and celebrating these cosmic events. The discovery of Göbekli fundamentally rewrites our understanding of the so-called star disk of Nebra, a Bronze Age artifact found just 15 miles away, which is considered the oldest concrete depiction of the cosmos. Göbekli proves that the astronomical knowledge represented on that disk was not a sudden invention of the Bronze Age, but was the culmination of a tradition stretching back thousands of years into the Neolithic period. The builders of Göbekli were part of the stroke-ornamented ware culture, and the site shows no evidence of being a settlement or a fortification. Instead, animal and human remains found there, including evidence of what may be ritualistic practices, suggest it was a place of gathering, worship, and sacrifice, a temple where the community came together to ensure the sun would continue its cycle and life would go on. It represents a pivotal moment in human history when we began to systematically observe the heavens, not out of idle curiosity, but to impose order on our world, to predict the seasons, and to connect our fragile lives to the eternal rhythms of the universe. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the Göbekli Circle is how it was found. It remained hidden for millennia, its form only discernible from the air through the subtle differences in crop growth above its buried ditches. This fact is a humbling reminder of how many other ancient wonders might still be lying beneath our feet, invisible at ground level, waiting for the right technology or the right moment to reveal themselves. The circle is a powerful symbol of the limits of our knowledge. For centuries, farmers plowed that field, completely unaware of the astronomical masterpiece sleeping just beneath the surface. It forces us to wonder what other monumental achievements of our ancestors are still hidden in plain sight, their secrets preserved by the very land we walk on every day. The Göbekli Circle, therefore, is a fitting end to our list. It is a wonder not of colossal scale or impossible technology, but of pure, refined intelligence. It stands as a silent testament to the earliest astronomers, the first scientists, who looked to the sky and saw not just lights, but a clock, a calendar, and a connection to the divine, leaving behind a perfect circle in the earth as a message across 7,000 years that they understood the universe far better than we ever imagined. But as we stand back and look at these 25 wonders together, a series of isolated mysteries begins to weave itself into a far more compelling tapestry. These are not just random anomalies, they are echoes of the same profound questions, recurring themes that whisper to us across continents and millennia. One of the most powerful and consistent threads connecting these sites is a sophisticated understanding of the cosmos. From the solar and lunar alignments of the Great Pyramid and the Göbekli Circle to the celestial calendar encoded in the gateway of the sun and the astronomical computer that was the Antikythera mechanism, we see ancient cultures investing immense effort to track the heavens. This wasn't just stargazing, it was a deep scientific engagement with the cycles of time, essential for survival, agriculture, and spiritual order. The precision achieved, often matching or even surpassing what was thought possible for their era, suggests this astronomical knowledge was a cornerstone of their civilization, a carefully guarded science passed down through generations of priest astronomers. Equally baffling is the global recurrence of megalithic construction. Cultures that, according to our textbooks, should have had no contact with one another all arrived at the same stunning solution, moving and shaping colossal stones with a mastery that still leaves engineers in awe. The jigsaw puzzle walls of Sacsayhuamán in Peru find a strange cousin in the polygonal masonry of sites in Egypt and Japan. The perfect spheres of Costa Rica speak to the same obsession with geometric perfection as the celestial circles of Stonehenge and Karnak. While the specific techniques may have varied, the underlying achievement, the ability to quarry, transport, and assemble multi-ton blocks with breathtaking precision, points to a level of practical engineering and communal organization that we consistently underestimate. It's as if a fundamental principle of working with stone on a monumental scale was discovered and then forgotten multiple times in human history. This pattern of emergence and disappearance leads us to the most tantalizing theme of all, the idea of a lost golden age. So many of these wonders exist as solitary peaks of achievement, with no clear evolutionary path leading up to them and a dramatic decline in technical prowess following them. The Antikythera mechanism is the prime example, a device of clockwork complexity that vanishes from the historical record for over 1,000 years. Göbekli Tepe presents the ultimate paradox, a temple complex built by hunter-gatherers, suggesting the spark for civilization might have been religious fervor rather than agricultural necessity, only to be deliberately buried and forgotten. This recurring narrative fuels the speculation that mainstream history has gotten the timeline wrong. Perhaps these are not the first clumsy attempts of nascent civilizations, but the scattered ruins of a much older, more sophisticated global culture that was largely wiped out by a cataclysm, like a great flood or a rapid climate shift at the end of the last ice age. The dramatic rise in sea levels around 10,000 years ago, which submerged landmasses like the Sunda Shelf and potentially sites like Yonaguni, provides a plausible mechanism for such a reset. Proponents of this view argue that survivors of this global event carrying fragments of advanced knowledge would have scattered across the world, seeding the development of the ancient civilizations we know. This would explain the curious similarities in mythologies, such as flood legends found in cultures from Mesopotamia to the Americas, and the sudden, seemingly inexplicable appearance of advanced technologies like metallurgy and astronomy in places like Egypt and Sumer. It's a compelling, albeit highly controversial, theory that connects these disparate wonders into a single, catastrophic event in prehistory. Of course, the mainstream scientific perspective offers a more gradualist, though no less amazing, explanation. It posits that humanity is capable of incredible ingenuity independently. The so-called psychic unity of mankind means that different groups facing similar challenges, like tracking seasons or building durable structures, can arrive at similar solutions without any contact. The development of agriculture, writing, and pyramid building occurred separately in the Old and New Worlds, a testament to parallel innovation. From this viewpoint, the wonders are not evidence of a single lost mother culture, but brilliant, isolated flowerings of human genius, each a testament to what our species can achieve when conditions are right. The loss of knowledge, then, is not due to a single cataclysm but to the normal, messy processes of history. The collapse of empires, the burning of libraries like Alexandria, and the simple fact that oral traditions and specialized skills can be fragile, easily lost in a single generation of war or famine. So, where does this leave us? The true mystery may not be choosing between these two grand narratives, but in accepting the humbling reality they both share. Our past is far less known and far more complex than our neatly packaged timelines suggest. These 25 wonders are not anomalies to be explained away, they are vital clues. They are persistent, stone-hard evidence that the story of human civilization is not a simple, upward-sloping line of progress. It is a story of brilliant peaks and deep valleys, of knowledge gained and tragically lost, of cultures rising to breathtaking heights only to fade back into the earth, leaving behind puzzles for their descendants to unravel. They challenge our arrogance and ignite our curiosity, serving as a permanent reminder that the history books are never truly closed, and that the next great discovery might be just beneath our feet, waiting to rewrite everything we thought we knew. For centuries, the quest to understand these ancient wonders has relied on the trowel and the brush, the painstaking work of excavating layer by layer. But what if we could see through the earth or peer inside a sealed tomb without ever breaking the seal? This is no longer the stuff of science fiction. We are living in a new golden age of discovery, not because we are digging faster, but because we have developed a suite of technological eyes that can see the invisible. The field of archaeology is undergoing a revolution as profound as the invention of radiocarbon dating, and it is finally giving us the tools to dissect these millennia-old puzzles with a precision that would have been unimaginable just a generation ago. One of the most powerful of these new tools is LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Imagine being able to strip away an entire rainforest with the click of a button. That is essentially what LiDAR does. Mounted on an airplane or drone, it fires millions of laser pulses at the ground. These pulses penetrate the tiny gaps in the forest canopy and bounce back from the solid ground below. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, a computer can create an incredibly detailed, three-dimensional map of the Earth's surface, completely removing the vegetation. This technology has utterly transformed our understanding of ancient civilizations in densely forested regions like Central America and Southeast Asia. In Guatemala, LiDAR surveys of the Maya region revealed something staggering: a vast, interconnected network of cities, fortifications, farmlands, and highways that was orders of magnitude larger and more complex than anyone had suspected. What we once thought were isolated city-states scattered in the jungle were actually parts of a sprawling, sophisticated metropolis comparable to ancient Greece or China. The technology has revealed over 60,000 previously unknown structures, houses, palaces, defensive walls, and reservoirs, painting a picture of a civilization that managed its environment on a colossal scale. It is like going from seeing a few stars in the sky to suddenly seeing the entire galaxy. It changes the entire context of the civilization, but LiDAR is not just for jungles. Back in Egypt, researchers are using other non-invasive technologies to probe the very heart of the Great Pyramids. The Scan Pyramids project has employed techniques like muon radiography, which uses cosmic ray particles that constantly rain down on Earth. These particles pass through empty space but get absorbed or deflected by dense materials. By placing sensitive muon detectors inside the pyramids, scientists can create a kind of X-ray image, revealing voids and hidden chambers within the millions of tons of stone. This is how, in 2017, they announced the discovery of a significant void, dubbed the Big Void, located directly above the Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its purpose remains a mystery. It could be a structural relief chamber, a sealed repository, or something entirely unexpected. But the fact that we can now detect such features without drilling a single hole is a monumental leap forward. It offers a clear path to exploring the pyramid's last secrets without causing any damage to the ancient structure. Meanwhile, advancements in materials science are allowing us to analyze the artifacts we already have in ways that were once impossible. Take the Nazca Lines. For decades, we could only guess at their age. But modern techniques like optically stimulated luminescence dating allow scientists to determine when a buried layer of sediment was last exposed to sunlight. By carefully examining the soil underneath the geoglyphs and comparing it to the soil on top, researchers have been able to pin down their creation to a period between 500 BC and 500 AD, confirming they are the work of the Nazca culture. Similarly, the Antikythera mechanism, that ancient Greek computer, has given up more of its secrets thanks to high-resolution X-ray tomography and 3D modeling. By creating a precise digital replica, scientists and engineers can virtually reassemble the fragments, see how the gears interlocked, and even create working animated models that demonstrate its function with stunning clarity. This digital dissection has revealed previously hidden inscriptions and confirmed the mechanism's ability to predict planetary positions and eclipses, solidifying its status as the world's first known analog computer. This marriage of ancient mystery and modern technology offers a thrilling promise. Answers may be closer than we think. We are no longer solely reliant on lucky breaks or destructive excavation. We have an entire arsenal of tools that allow us to survey vast landscapes, see through solid rock, and read the molecular history of an object. each new scan, each new analysis adds another piece to the puzzle. The silent stones and cryptic artifacts that have baffled us for centuries are finally beginning to speak, not in whispers but in the clear, data-rich language of science. The greatest wonders of the ancient world may yet reveal their truths, not to a lone adventurer with a shovel, but to a team of researchers armed with lasers, particle detectors, and the power to see the unseen. Yet, with all these powerful new tools at our disposal, we are left with a final, deeply human question that transcends the science and the stones themselves. Why do these ancient mysteries hold such an enduring, powerful grip on our imagination? Why do we invest so much time, money, and intellectual energy into unraveling puzzles that are, in many cases, thousands of years old? The answer lies not just in the stones, but in us. These unexplained wonders tap into fundamental aspects of human psychology, challenging the stories we tell ourselves and igniting a sense of possibility that our orderly modern world often lacks. At the most basic level, these enigmas present a direct challenge to our perception of history as a neat, linear path of progress. We are taught a comforting narrative. Humanity started as primitive hunter-gatherers, discovered agriculture, built villages which grew into cities, and gradually, step by step, developed the technology and knowledge that led to our current advanced state. It's a tidy, upward-sloping timeline, but then Göbekli Tepe appears, a cathedral built by nomads, and that timeline shatters. The Antikythera mechanism surfaces, a computer that vanishes for a millennium, and our concept of a smooth, cumulative advancement is thrown into doubt. These anomalies are intellectual roadblocks that force us to stop and reconsider. They suggest that the path of human ingenuity is not a straight line, but a complex web with brilliant, isolated peaks and devastating valleys of forgotten knowledge. This is deeply unsettling but also thrilling. It introduces an element of unpredictability into our past, suggesting that history is not a settled matter but a living, breathing field of discovery where the next find could rewrite everything. This confrontation with the unknown also sparks our innate creativity and imagination in a way that a fully explained past never could. A mystery is an empty canvas. The Great Pyramid is impressive on its own, but it becomes legendary when we ask how it was built. That how is a vacuum that our minds rush to fill with possibilities. We imagine lost technologies, advanced civilizations, or even divine intervention. This creative process is a form of intellectual play, a way of engaging with the world that is both stimulating and deeply satisfying. It is the same impulse that drives us to read detective novels or watch science fiction films. We are presented with a puzzle, and we delight in constructing possible solutions, testing them against the evidence, and reveling in the suspense of not knowing the final answer. The mystery itself is often more compelling than any single solution could ever be. This fascination is amplified by a deep-seated, almost romantic, desire for what we might call the grandeur of the past. There is a certain melancholy charm to the idea of a lost golden age, a time when giants walked the earth and possessed wisdom that has since faded from the world. The notion of an advanced civilization like Atlantis, wiped out by a great cataclysm, is a powerful myth because it speaks to our fears about the fragility of our own society. It suggests that our current technological dominance is not guaranteed, that empires can fall and knowledge can be lost to the sands of time. This idea imbues these ancient sites with a poignant significance. They become potential relics of a greater world, haunting reminders that our own time may one day be just a layer of dust and mystery for future archaeologists to ponder. Unsurprisingly, this potent mix of mystery, imagination, and romanticism has proven to be fertile ground for popular culture. From the globe-trotting adventures of Indiana Jones, who brings a swashbuckling energy to the world of archaeology, to the speculative theories presented in shows like Ancient Aliens, these stories have kept the public passionately engaged with the ancient past, even if they take significant creative liberties. While academics might shudder at some of the more fringe interpretations, these cultural products serve a vital purpose. They act as a gateway, capturing the public's imagination and drawing them into the conversation. They make archaeology exciting and accessible, transforming dry academic debates into grand narratives about human origins and potential. They remind us that the past is not a collection of dead facts, but a source of endless stories and speculation. Ultimately, our fascination with these unexplained wonders is a reflection of a fundamental human need, the need for mystery itself. In an age where information is instantly available and so much of our world has been mapped, measured, and explained, these ancient puzzles stand as bastions of the unknown. They are reminders that our planet still holds secrets, that our history is richer and stranger than our textbooks can contain. They fulfill a deep-seated longing for a world where not everything is known, where there are still frontiers of knowledge to be explored. These silent stones and cryptic artifacts are more than just historical curiosities. They are invitations. They invite us to wonder, to question, and to dream. They ensure that the past remains not a closed book, but an open question, forever challenging us to keep looking, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the incredible, unfinished story of humanity. This growing technological prowess, however, brings with it a profound and often uncomfortable responsibility. As we develop the tools to finally unlock these ancient secrets, we must also confront a critical ethical question. Just because we can explore, does it always mean we should? The drive to uncover the truth about our past is a powerful one, but it must be carefully weighed against the potential cost to the very wonders we seek to understand. The relationship between humanity and its heritage is no longer a simple story of discovery. It has evolved into a complex dance of preservation, respect, and sometimes necessary restraint. Consider the impact of modern tourism, a double-edged sword that provides vital funding for conservation while simultaneously threatening the sites it celebrates. The very act of thousands of visitors walking across the pristine Nazca Plains each year introduces microscopic vibrations and abrasive dust that slowly, inexorably erode the delicate geoglyphs. The moisture from human breath and sweat in the enclosed chambers of the Great Pyramid can accelerate the degradation of the ancient limestone. In places like Machu Picchu, the sheer volume of foot traffic has necessitated strict visitor limits and designated pathways to prevent the ancient stonework from being literally loved to death. The dilemma is acute. Making these places accessible to the public fulfills a universal human desire to connect with history, yet that very connection can, over time, lead to their disappearance. This forces a difficult balance between public access and permanent preservation, often requiring heart-wrenching decisions to restrict the very access that fosters appreciation. Beyond the physical wear and tear lies a deeper, more spiritual ethical dilemma. The excavation of sites that are, for living cultures, not merely archaeological curiosities but active sacred ground or the resting places of ancestors. The removal of human remains, such as the Tarim mummies, for scientific study raises significant concerns. While DNA analysis can reveal fascinating chapters of human migration, these individuals were buried with the intention of resting in peace for eternity. To descendants or cultural groups who claim a connection, this scientific curiosity can feel like a profound desecration. Similarly, sites like the Gate of the Gods in Peru or the Moai of Easter Island are not simply tourist attractions. They are central to the spiritual identity and oral histories of the Aymara and Rapa Nui peoples. When archaeologists arrive with permits and trowels, they are often seen as intruders, imposing an external, scientific narrative onto a landscape that already holds deep, living meaning for the local community. This conflict extends to the very methods of preservation. There is an ongoing debate between two schools of thought, restoration versus conservation. Some argue for the careful reconstruction of ruins, like rebuilding a crumbling wall at Sacsayhuamán or re-erecting a fallen Moai, to give modern visitors a clearer sense of the site's original grandeur and scale. This approach can make history feel more immediate and tangible. However, opponents argue that such reconstruction is a form of fakery, an interpretation that destroys the authentic historical record. Every crack, every fallen stone tells a story of the passage of time, of earthquakes, weathering, and the natural process of decay. By fixing a ruin, we risk replacing genuine history with a modern guess, sanitizing the past and erasing the very evidence of its age and the narrative of its decline. The most significant shift in modern archaeology is the growing recognition that these dilemmas cannot be resolved by scientists alone. There is an essential and overdue movement towards collaborative stewardship, where archaeological work is conducted with indigenous communities rather than on them. This means involving local and descendant communities from the very beginning of a project, consulting with elders about the spiritual significance of a site, hiring local workers, and training community members in archaeological techniques so they can be the primary guardians of their own heritage. It also means respecting when a community says no. There may be caves considered too sacred to enter or burial grounds that must remain undisturbed, regardless of the potential scientific payoff. This requires a humility that has not always been present in the field, an acknowledgement that scientific curiosity does not automatically trump spiritual and cultural values. Ultimately, the goal is to find a sustainable path forward, one that satisfies our thirst for knowledge while ensuring these irreplaceable treasures survive for future generations to ponder. This involves employing the non-invasive technologies we discussed earlier, like LiDAR and muon scanning, to learn as much as possible without breaking ground or disturbing a site's integrity. It means creating detailed digital archives and 3D models, preserving a virtual copy of a structure that can be studied by anyone in the world while the original remains untouched. The greatest wonder of the ancient world may not be a single pyramid or statue, but the collective legacy they represent. Our responsibility is not just to uncover their secrets, but to protect their silence, to listen to the living cultures connected to them, and to ensure that our search for answers does not become the very force that destroys the questions themselves. And so, our journey through these 25 silent, stone-cold witnesses to the past comes to a close. But what a journey it has been, from the solar-aligned pyramids of Giza to the cosmic calendar of the Gateway of the Sun, from the impossibly precise granite spheres of Costa Rica to the subterranean cities of the Longyou caves. We have stood before colossal statues that were walked across islands and have held in our minds the intricate gears of a 2,000-year-old computer. Each of these wonders, in its own unique way, presents a profound challenge not to the past, but to our present understanding of it. They are not simply relics to be catalogued. They are active, ongoing conversations with the human story, each one a piece of evidence that our timeline is far more complex, more mysterious, and more brilliant than we have ever allowed ourselves to believe. The consistent thread woven through all of these enigmas is the undeniable ingenuity of our ancestors. Across continents and millennia, separated by oceans and languages, we see cultures arriving at staggering solutions to monumental challenges. They moved mountains of stone, charted the heavens with uncanny precision, and encoded sophisticated knowledge into their art and architecture. These achievements force us to abandon the simplistic notion of a linear, upward march of progress. Instead, we see a vibrant tapestry of human potential, with brilliant flashes of genius that sometimes flickered out, only to be rediscovered centuries or even millennia later. The story of human civilization is not a straight line, but a series of peaks and valleys, a narrative punctuated by both incredible innovation and devastating loss. These wonders are the surviving peaks, the parts of the story that refuse to be buried by time, demanding that we reconsider the very nature of human capability. This brings us to the most important lesson these ancient mysteries teach us, the vital importance of staying curious. In a world that often prizes definitive answers, these puzzles are a powerful reminder that not knowing is not a failure but an invitation. They encourage us to question the established narratives, to look at the evidence with fresh eyes, and to remain open to possibilities that might initially seem impossible. The true value of the Antikythera mechanism or Göbekli Tepe is not just in what they are, but in the questions they force us to ask. They are the antidote to intellectual complacency, ensuring that the fields of history and archaeology remain dynamic, living sciences, always on the verge of a new discovery that could change everything. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 25 wonders captured your imagination the most? Was it the haunting solitude of Easter Island's Moai, standing as a cautionary tale of ambition and ecology? Or perhaps the cryptic, unreadable pages of the Voynich manuscript, a puzzle that has defied the world's greatest codebreakers? Maybe the sheer, mind-bending age of Göbekli Tepe, which rewrote the very first chapter of civilization, left you in awe. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us which mystery you find most compelling and why. Your perspective adds another valuable voice to this grand, ongoing conversation about our shared past. As we conclude, remember that the map of human history is still being drawn. The technologies of LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar are revealing lost cities beneath jungle canopies, while new analytical techniques are extracting secrets from artifacts we've had for centuries. The greatest discovery might not be a forgotten temple or a hidden tomb. It might be a new way of seeing the evidence we already possess. The next chapter in this incredible story is being written right now, and it is a story that belongs to all of us. So keep wondering, keep questioning, and keep looking at the world with a sense of awe, because the most astonishing wonder of the ancient world may still be hidden, waiting just beneath the surface for the curious mind that finally uncovers